You wake up and everything looks normal until you realize you're already living in the warning. Not the obvious cartoon villain warning. The clean, smiling, perfectly reasonable kind. The kind that hands you bread, remembers your name, and somehow makes you feel silly for being cautious. Hey guys, tonight we begin with the figure hiding in plain sight. We're stepping into a world where the most dangerous person in the room doesn't look dangerous at all. He looks helpful. He looks gifted. He looks like the guy everyone keeps inviting back because he's just so good with people. So before you get comfortable, take a moment. Like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the 1st century and your ceiling is not a ceiling. It's a low, sweating slab of stone that looks like it's been thinking about collapsing for years. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, you can smell everyone else who is too. You sit up and immediately bonk your head, because of course you do. This room is basically a basement that Roman architecture forgot to finish. There's a lamp burning oil that smells like hot pennies and old olives, and the air is thick with damp wool, sour wine, and nervous human breath. You're not in a cute little gathering, you're in a huddle. People are packed shoulder to shoulder on crates, broken pottery, and whatever piece of wood didn't rot yet. Someone's cloak is touching your arm, and it's greasy in a way that suggests it has wiped tears and soup. Outside, Rome is doing what Rome does. Footsteps on stone, shouting in the street. A drunk man singing like his life depends on it. Somewhere nearby, a sewer burps. It's not subtle. The smell slides in under the door like it pays rent. Down here, nobody speaks at full volume. Even the babies have been trained into that tragic little don't cry wheeze. There's a basket in the corner with cloth stuffed around it, like you can muffle an infant with good intentions. Everyone keeps looking at the stairs, because stairs are where problems arrive. You adjust your tunic, which is itchy, because it's always itchy. Wool in this era isn't a fabric, it's a personality trait. You scratch your shoulder and feel a tiny scab you don't remember getting. Congratulations again. You are now in a lifelong relationship with mystery injuries. A woman passes you a piece of bread. It's dense, dark, and tastes faintly like smoke and regret. You chew anyway, because hunger is louder than taste. The crust scrapes your gums, and you pretend that's fine. Someone whispers your name like it's a risky hobby. You lean in. There's talk, always talk, about crackdowns, arrests, neighbors who suddenly care what you're doing at night. And then the real talk arrives, and the room gets even smaller. Not a monster, not a horned nightmare stomping through the streets. No, what keeps people awake is the idea of someone impressive. Someone who can walk into a room like this and make everyone feel safer while they're being led somewhere dangerous. A man with a smile that lands like a warm blanket. You can almost see him in your mind because you've met the type. He's well spoken. He remembers details. He compliments the host's lamp. He says everything with that calm teacher voice, like he's doing you a favor by correcting you. And somehow you end up nodding along, even when your stomach tightens. Upstairs, power looks like soldiers and chains. Down here, fear looks like people whispering. He's so convincing, like it's a diagnosis. Someone mutters about how he'll have signs, proofs, the kind of confidence that makes you doubt your own eyes. And the worst part is how normal that sounds in the moment, because life is already full of little loyalties: who you buy from, who you greet in the street, who you refuse to greet, which household you can trust with a message, and which one will sell you out for a better tax situation. Every day is a tiny negotiation with survival, and you're tired. You're so tired. Tired of the wet cold that creeps into your joints. Tired of pretending you're just going for a walk when you're actually sneaking to worship. Tired of checking the door like it's going to sprout teeth. And in the middle of that exhaustion, the idea of a savior-shaped liar is horrifying. Not because he's loud, because he's soothing, because he sounds like the relief you've been begging for, because he offers unity, peace, solutions, and a nice, simple explanation for why you're the problem. A man near the lamp clears his throat and everyone flinches like the sound might travel. He starts speaking, quietly, about warnings they've heard read aloud, about deception that doesn't kick down the door. It knocks politely. It brings a gift basket. You glance around at faces lit from below by the oil flame. The shadows make everyone look older, even the teenagers. There's a boy with dirt under his nails, trying to look brave. There's an old man whose hands won't stop shaking, so he keeps them folded. Above you, a cart rattles by, and dust trickles from the ceiling. Someone coughs and tries to swallow it. The lamp flickers, and the room does that awful thing where darkness threatens for half a second. For a moment, you imagine boots on the stairs, and your mouth goes dry. Then the speaker says it again, slower, like he wants it to sink into bone. The deceiver won't come wearing obvious evil. He'll come polished, beloved, impressive, and you hate that your heart immediately tries to picture what that would look like, because you know what people do with impressive. They excuse it, they protect it, they share it, they repeat it at dinner like it's wisdom. They build their whole personality around being close to it. And now you're sitting in a basement that smells like mildew and shared anxiety, wondering if you'd recognize the danger in time. Would you spot it when it's charming? Would you feel the hook under the compliment? Would you notice when the help starts costing you pieces of your soul? The lamp pops. A tiny spit of oil hits the floor and smokes. Someone whispers a prayer with trembling lips. Someone else listens to the street, counting footsteps like counting down to disaster. And you realize this isn't a spooky campfire story to them. This is survival training. Not for claws and fangs, but for a smile that's too perfect. For a voice that makes you feel safe while it moves the furniture of your conscience. For a leader-shaped shadow that can hide in plain sight, because everyone wants him there. So stay down here a little longer. Let the basement air cling to your clothes. Let the whispers brush your ear. Tonight, we're walking through the warnings the way these people did. One dim lamp, one uneasy rumor, one unsettling picture at a time. It starts with a nightmare. Not yours, Daniel's, and you wake up with it still stuck to you. 1 minute you're asleep in Babylon, and the next you're upright, like someone yanked your soul by the collar. Your chest is heaving, your throat tastes like old dust, and your robe is stuck to you in damp, humiliating patches. You blink into the dark, waiting for your eyes to behave. They don't. Babylon at night is never truly quiet. There's always something grinding, dripping, muttering, or scuttling like it has a job. Your room smells like oil smoke, wool, and the faint, unavoidable reality of a chamber pot that's doing its best. You sit there listening to your own breath, trying to decide if you're dying or merely having the worst dream of your life. Your hands are shaking, not an elegant tremble either. It's the kind of shaking that makes you look down like, is this my body now? Is this who I am? Outside, far off, you hear guards calling to each other. A door slams. Somebody laughs like they've never had consequences. You wipe your face, and your skin is slick with sweat. Cold sweat. The kind that makes you feel like your bones are made of wet clay. You swallow and taste terror again, because your dream is still right there behind your eyes. It's not fading, it's waiting. You squeeze them shut, hoping it drains away. It doesn't. The sea comes back first. Not a nice sea, not a holiday sea with little boats and sun glitter. A black, churning mouth of water under a sky that looks bruised. Winds are ripping across it from every direction, like the world can't agree on how to panic. The surface boils and folds over itself, and you can feel the spray even though you're not supposed to be there. You're standing at the edge of something vast, and it's the kind of vast that makes you feel like a mistake. The air tastes like salt and iron. Your stomach drops because the sea is moving wrong. It's not just stormy, it's expectant. And then something breaks the surface. A shape rises slick and massive, dragging the sea down with it like the water owes it money. It's a lion, except it's not. It has wings, big ones, eagle wings, spread wide and dripping. It hauls itself up like it owns the shoreline, shaking off black water in sheets. You can hear it breathe, a deep, gut-level rasp that makes your teeth feel loose. The wings twitch, and you get this awful sense of speed, of reach, like nothing around it gets to feel safe. You want to back up, but your feet feel glued to the place where dread lives. The lion thing shifts again, and the wings, those giant, powerful wings, get torn away. Not politely, not like feathers drifting down in a poem. They're ripped off like someone is punishing it in public. The beast lurches, suddenly wrong-footed, and it's lifted up. It stands on 2 feet like a man. It looks ridiculous for half a heartbeat, like a drunken performer at a festival. Then you see its eyes. Human awareness is sitting in that face now, and it's worse than the claws. A human mind behind an animal's power. A heart is given to it, and you hate the phrase even in your own head, because what does that even mean? It means it looks at you like it knows you. Before you can swallow, the sea heaves again. A second beast rises, and this one is built like hunger. A bear, heavy and brutal, hauling itself up with water pouring off its fur. It's raised up on one side, crooked like a bully, who's always leaned into violence. Something pale juts between its teeth. Ribs. Not metaphor ribs, not symbolic ribs. Bone ribs, slick and stripped. The leftovers of somebody who didn't get to run fast enough. A voice barks out into the storm, sharp and commanding. Arise, devour much flesh. The bear opens its mouth wider, and you feel your stomach turn like you've been punched. It moves like it's been given permission. No, like it's been ordered. The sea isn't finished. It throws up a third beast like it's coughing out a curse. This one is fast even before it moves. A leopard, sleek, spotted, except it has 4 wings on its back. Bird wings again, twitching with impatient energy, as if regular speed was insulting. And it has 4 heads, 4 faces turning, scanning, watching in different directions. You don't even know where to look, because everywhere you look, it's also looking. Power is given to it, and you can feel it settle onto the creature like a crown made of pressure. The 3 beasts stand there in your vision, like a parade of disasters, and the sea behind them keeps churning. You're hoping, begging, this is it. 3 is plenty. 3 is excessive. 3 is already enough to make a person swear off sleep forever. But the water darkens. The wind shrieks, and the fourth one comes up. This is where your dream stops being strange and starts being wrong. It's not a recognizable animal. It's a problem with legs. It rises out of the sea with the weight of a collapsing gate, and when it opens its mouth you see iron. Not like iron, not as strong as iron. Iron teeth, huge, brutal, clanging teeth that look forged, not grown. It bites down on something you can't see, and the sound is metal scraping bone. It devours and breaks in pieces. Then it tramples what's left. It doesn't just win, it grinds. It's different from the others in the way a plague is different from a storm. A storm passes, a plague moves in. The beast stands there hulking and steady, as if the sea itself is its personal bathwater. You notice horns, 10 of them. They jut out like trophies, like someone decorated this thing with symbols of dominance. Your eyes trace them, counting because counting is something your mind can do while your spirit panics. 1, 2, 3, 10. And while you're counting, another horn starts pushing up. A little one. At first you almost miss it, because compared to the rest, it's small. It wedges its way in like a rude thought. It grows, forcing space for itself, and 3 of the other horns are uprooted. Not gently moved aside, torn out. You hear a crack like roots ripping from hard ground, except this is flesh and bone and power, and that little horn keeps rising. You lean forward in the dream, unable to stop yourself, because the little horn has eyes, human eyes, not carved, not painted, not some trick of light. Eyes set into the horn, blinking against the spray. It looks around like it's taking attendance. Your skin prickles all over, because this is the part your soul recognizes. Not just strength, not just violence, intelligence, focus. You want monsters to be mindless. This one isn't. And then you see its mouth. A mouth on a horn should not be possible, and yet there it is. It opens and words come out. Pompous words, swelling and self-satisfied. It talks like it's giving a speech to people who already love it. The sound of it is smooth, practiced, confident. It boasts like boasting is a sacrament. And as it speaks, you realize the worst part. It's not roaring. It's not frothing. It's not even shouting. It's talking. Like a person. Like the kind of person who can turn a room with a sentence. The beast stands there, iron-toothed and patient, while the little horn does what it does best. It makes arrogance feel inevitable. You feel your throat tighten, because you know what words can do. You've lived in royal courts. You've watched men talk themselves into power like it was their birthright. You've seen a steady voice calm a crowd while soldiers move into position. And this mouth is that, but sharper. It speaks as though heaven itself is a prop. You try to look away. Your eyes won't cooperate. Everything shifts without warning, like the dream grabs you by the hair and drags you to the next horror. Thrones appear, not one, several. They settle into place with the heavy finality of judgment. The air changes. It's still terrifying, but it's a different kind of terrifying. Like stepping into a court where you don't know the charges. An Ancient of Days takes his seat. His clothing is white like clean linen you've never once seen in Babylon. Not nice white, not freshly washed. Impossible white. His hair is like pure wool, and the throne is flames. Wheels of fire, fire that moves, fire that's alive. A river of fire flows out in front, pouring like it can't stop. Thousands upon thousands stand before him. 10,000 times 10,000. So many you can't even assign faces. It's a crowd beyond counting, and every one of them feels alert, present, ready. Books are opened. You feel that in your stomach. Opened books in a vision never mean good news for the likes of you. You're watching this court assemble while the little horn keeps speaking. It's still talking. It's still boasting. It's like it doesn't understand where it is, or it understands perfectly and doesn't care. You can hear its words threading through the court like a snake that wandered into a wedding. Your attention keeps snapping back to it, because the little horn is bold in a way that makes bold men look shy. It's got that energy of someone who's never been told no and survived. You're staring, trapped between the blaze of the throne and the crude confidence of the horn. The beast with iron teeth stands there too, looming like a battering ram given a body. Your heart is hammering, and you can feel sweat cooling on your skin even inside the dream. Then everything swings again, and you're back near the beasts, back near the horn. This is where the fear gets personal, because now it isn't just posturing. Now it's moving. The little horn looks toward the saints. You don't see them as a neat group with matching outfits. You see them as people. You see tired faces and worn and hands. You see men with calluses, women with hair pinned up with whatever they could find. You see the kind of people who whisper prayers because praying loud gets you killed, and the horn goes to war with them, not with a sword in its own hand. It wages war like a ruler wages war, with force, with pressure, with decrees, with the crushing weight of a system that doesn't care if you're good. You watch it happen, and your mouth goes dry, because the saints don't look like warriors. They look like neighbors. They look like the people you've eaten with. The horn presses in. It pushes. It accuses. It targets. And somehow it prevails. You feel your chest constrict because your brain keeps insisting it should not be allowed. The saints are being worn down. That's what it feels like. Not a quick defeat. A slow grinding. Like a millstone turning day after day, pulverizing grain until it becomes dust. Only this time, it's hope being turned into powder. You watch faces tighten with strain. You watch bodies sag under the constant demand to bend. You see the temptation to just comply, to just say the words, to just do the gesture, to just stop being difficult. The horn's mouth keeps going, and you can almost hear the tone. It's the tone of someone explaining why your conscience is inconvenient. It's the tone of someone calling you dangerous for refusing to pretend. It's the tone that says, be reasonable, while it sharpens the knife. You want to shout. You want to rush in. You can't. In dreams like this, you're not a hero. You're an eyewitness. And being an eyewitness is its own kind of punishment. Time starts doing something strange. It stretches. It compresses. Days and nights become a blur, and you feel it in your bones even though you're asleep. The saints keep getting worn down. The horn keeps winning. And you realize the horn isn't just violent. It's organized. It thinks in calendars. It thinks in seasons. It thinks in schedules and deadlines, and you have until this date to comply. It thinks in changing times and laws. You feel those words hit you like cold water. Changing times and laws, because you know what that does to people. People can handle pain better than they can handle confusion, but change the rhythm of their life, change their festivals, change when they rest, change what they're allowed to call good, and you can make them dizzy. You can make them compliant. You can make them forget who they were. The horn keeps at it. It looks small compared to the beast behind it, yet it's the one holding everyone's attention. Because the beast is raw power, but the horn is the brain. The horn is the mouth. It speaks, and reality rearranges itself around the sound. You see the saints being handed impossible choices. You see families split by fear. You see the quiet, private misery of people trying to stay faithful when faithfulness costs them everything. And the horn prevails. That word sits in you like a stone. Prevails. Not attacks, not tries. Prevails. You feel sick. In the dream, you feel older than you already are. Your knees ache, and your heart feels like it's dragging itself through mud. You want to wake up so badly it hurts. But the vision keeps going, relentless. The court is still there in the background, the fire still flowing, the book still open. And finally, something shifts. The Ancient of Days gives judgment in favor of the saints. You feel that like a gust of air into a room that's been suffocating. It isn't giddy relief, it's heavier than that. It's the weight of something right being restored. The time comes for the saints to possess the kingdom. But your eyes are still snagged on the horn. Because the horn doesn't look repentant. It doesn't look frightened. It looks offended. Like judgment is a personal insult. Like consequences are an outrage. The beast is slain. Its body is destroyed. It's given to the burning flame. You hear the roar of it. And it's not the beast roaring. It's fire doing what fire does, consuming without apology. The other beasts lose their dominion too, their lives prolonged only for a season. You don't even have time to process that, because the vision keeps pulling you forward. Now you see one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approaches the Ancient of Days, and there's a transfer, dominion, glory, a kingdom. All peoples, nations, and languages serve him. His dominion is everlasting. His kingdom won't be destroyed. It should feel like a soft landing. It doesn't. Not yet. Because your body is still stuck in the earlier part of the dream, where the horn was winning. Your mind can't stop replaying the look in those human eyes. That mouth. That calm, confident, poisonous voice. Your stomach twists, and the vision begins to fade like smoke being pulled away by wind. You jolt hard back into your Babylon room. Your eyes fly open, and you're staring at darkness and a ceiling that suddenly feels much too close. Your breath comes fast. You press a hand to your chest, expecting your ribs to be cracked from how hard your heart is hitting them. Your skin is clammy. Your hair is damp at the scalp, and it's cold now because sweat always turns on you in the end. The night air in Babylon has that dry chill that sneaks into your joints and stays there. You sit on the edge of your bed, listening. No sea, no beasts, just distant city noise and the small betrayals of an old house settling. You swallow. Your throat is raw, like you've been screaming. Maybe you were. You wipe your palms on your robe, and the fabric clings because of course it does. Everything in your life clings. Babylon clings. Exile clings. Even nightmares cling. You try to steady your breathing by focusing on small things. The lamp, the corner, the folded cloth, the outline of your sandals on the floor. All the normal, boring objects that prove you're not standing on the edge of a supernatural ocean. But your mind keeps slamming into the same wall. The horn had eyes, human eyes. It spoke. It wasn't an animal noise. It wasn't chaos. It was language. You swing your feet to the floor, and the packed earth is cold. A little grit sticks to your heel. You hate how grounding that is, how even holy terror has to share space with dirt. Your legs feel weak, as if you've run a long distance. You stand anyway, because lying down feels impossible. You cross the room and splash water on your face from a jar. The water smells faintly of clay and whatever else the jar has absorbed over the years. It drips down your beard. You don't care. Your reflection in the dark window is just a smear, but you can still see the posture of a man who's just looked at something he can't unsee. Your stomach rolls. You grip the edge of the table until your knuckles ache. You've had visions before. You've seen things that made kings sweat. You've interpreted dreams that could change an empire. This one feels different. This one wasn't a puzzle. It was a warning, that bit. You sit back down because your knees finally demand it. Your hands are still trembling. Not as hard as before, but enough to annoy you. Enough to make you feel powerless, which is the exact flavor of humiliation Babylon loves serving. You stare at the floor, and the images return with no invitation. Iron teeth, 10 horns, the little horn pushing its way up like entitlement made flesh. 3 horns torn out, eyes blinking, a mouth speaking pompous words, waging war, winning, wearing down the saints. You whisper to yourself without realizing it. Not a prayer, not exactly. More like your brain testing whether language still works after what you saw. Your mouth feels dry. Your tongue sticks for a second before words come. You want someone to tell you what it means. You want someone to tell you it won't happen. You want someone to tell you the saints don't lose, not even for a while. But the dream already told you the worst part. They do lose for a while. They get worn down. They get pressed. They get bruised by time itself. Your chest tightens again, and you tilt your head back, staring at the ceiling. In the dimness, you can see faint stains on the plaster. Old smoke, old moisture, old life. The kind of ceiling that has listened to a lot of quiet sobbing. You're not the first person to be afraid in this room. You won't be the last. Your mind drifts back to the court of fire, the Ancient of Days seated, the books opened, the river of flame. You cling to that part like it's a handhold on a cliff, because it means someone saw, someone recorded, someone judged. Yet your body is still reacting to the part where the horn was allowed to do what it did. Allowed. That's what makes your skin crawl. Not that evil exists, that it gets time. You finally push yourself up again, restless. You pace slow, barefoot steps on hard ground. Each step makes a soft scuff. It's almost comical, the great prophet of exile doing nervous laps like a man who misplaced his keys. You stop and press your fingertips to your temples. Your head aches, deep, a tired ache behind the eyes, the kind that promises a miserable morning. You need understanding, not to satisfy curiosity, to survive, to warn, to make sure you're not the only one carrying this. In the fading dark, your mind reaches toward the presence you felt in visions before. Not a warm presence, not a cuddly presence, a presence that arrives like authority. In the vision, you had approached one of the ones standing there, one of the attendants, calm among the fire and thrones, like this, was a normal day at work. You had asked what all this meant, because what else could you do? And the answer had come, steady and blunt. The 4 beasts are 4 kings, 4 kingdoms rising from the earth. The saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom. They'll possess it forever. You remember hearing it, and it should have soothed you. But you had asked about the 4th beast, because of course you did. Because your fear had teeth. You had asked about the 10 horns, about the other horn that came up after them. The one that uprooted 3, the one with eyes, the one with the mouth. You remember the answer, and it's like swallowing sand. That horn would be different. It would speak words against the Most High. It would wear out the saints. It would try to change times and laws. They would be given into its hand. For a time, times, and half a time. Even thinking it makes your stomach flip. Time, times, and half a time. It's specific, but not comforting. It's like being told how long you'll be underwater. Long enough to panic, not long enough to die. The judgment will sit. The dominion will be taken away, consumed and destroyed to the end. The kingdom will be given to the people of the saints. You remember that too. You hold on to it. Still, you're shaking. You stand at the window and look out at Babylon. Even at night, there's a glow from torches, from lamps, from life packed too tightly. You can smell the city through the cracks, smoke, cooking fat, dust, the faint sweetness of something spilled and fermenting in the street. Somewhere, a dog barks once, sharp and angry, then stops. You picture the sea from your dream, and it's hard not to see the city like that sea. Churning, restless, full of things rising. Babylon has its own beasts. You've watched them eat. You've watched them smile while they eat. You've watched them call it order. You press your forehead to the cool wall and close your eyes again. Your body feels like it's run a race it didn't sign up for. Your spirit feels scraped, and still the little horn's voice lingers, the way a bad tune lingers after a feast. Pompous, certain, smooth. You hate how familiar it feels, because you've heard that tone in royal courts. You've heard it in the mouths of men who think they're inevitable, men who treat God like a rumor they can outlast. You pull back from the wall and stand there breathing shallowly. You're aware of the simple fact that the dream happened. It came to you, it landed, it left a mark, and now you have to live with it. You glance at the bed, the rumpled cloth, the damp spot where your sweat soaked through. It looks small now, like a child's mattress, like a joke compared to what your mind just held. You sit again, slower this time. Your hands rest on your knees. They're steadier now, but the fear has settled deeper, not frantic, enduring. You know yourself well enough to know you won't forget this, not in a week, not in a year, not ever. You'll carry it like a stone under your ribs. There's a particular loneliness to being the one who sees. People think visions are glamorous. People think it's all shining light and meaningful symbols. Nobody talks about waking up drenched, nauseated, and haunted by a mouth on a horn. Nobody talks about the way your stomach turns when you realize evil can be intelligent. Nobody talks about the humiliation of being afraid of something that hasn't even happened yet. You stare at your fingers, old fingers, exile fingers, ink stains sometimes, from writing and recording because you can't risk forgetting. Your mind goes to the saints again, to them being worn down, to the way victory didn't look like victory at first. You think of ordinary faithfulness, of prayers whispered into sleeves, of tired hands lighting lamps and sharing bread and trying not to get noticed. You think of them facing something that speaks, something persuasive, something that doesn't just threaten with force, but with meaning, with a new calendar, a new law, a new normal. You swallow, your throat clicks, you lean back against the wall, and the room feels too hot, then too cold. Your body can't decide what to do with itself. Your mind drifts again, unwillingly, to the end of the vision, to the court, to the fire, to the books opened like the universe is keeping receipts. You don't feel triumphant. You feel warned. You feel like you've been handed a message you didn't ask for. And you feel the strange, heavy comfort of knowing the horn's mouth doesn't get the last word. Not forever. The night outside begins to thin, barely. Not dawn yet, but the edge of it. A hint that time is still moving. You sit there in Babylon, listening to the city breathe, and you keep the vision close. Not like a treasure, like a blade wrapped in cloth, because you'll need it later, because others will need it later, because somewhere down the long road of history, someone will hear about a little horn with human eyes and a mouth that boasts, and they'll feel their own stomach drop, recognizing that particular kind of evil, clever, confident, smiling, and for a while, winning. So you sit with it in the dim, the sweat drying on your skin, the taste of fear slowly fading. Outside, Babylon carries on, unaware. Inside you hold your peace like a burden. And somewhere far beyond your room, beyond your city, beyond your lifetime, the sea keeps churning, waiting for what rises next. Daniel's nightmare came true once already, and it was worse than anyone imagined. 3 centuries pass. It doesn't feel smooth. It feels like getting shoved. And you're not in Babylon anymore. You're in Jerusalem, and the morning air has that familiar temple mix of cold limestone, old smoke, and yesterday's blood that never fully scrubs out. Your hands smell like copper and ash, no matter how many times you rinse them. You adjust your linen and try to act like today is just another day of sacrifices, psalms, and keeping the holy place holy. Your stomach does that small, anxious roll it's been doing for months, because the city has been feeling watched, not in the comforting God sees way, in the someone with a helmet and a spear is counting your breaths way. You hear the sounds first, before you see anything. Boots, a lot of them, hitting stone with that synced-up confidence of men who have never had to ask permission. Metal clinks, leather creaks, a voice barks in a language that scrapes your ears, like someone is chewing gravel while talking. You glance toward the outer courts and your throat tightens. Soldiers, not pilgrims with lambs, not old men with doves in wicker cages. Soldiers with polished gear and bored faces, standing in God's house like it's a tavern they've decided to inspect. You've had foreigners pass through before. You've dealt with Rome-adjacent attitudes and Greek merchants who act like the world is their marketplace. But this feels different. This feels like somebody brought a crowbar to a wedding. The temple is busy because it's always busy. Priests moving with practiced urgency. Levites singing, their voices bouncing off stone and trying to make the day feel normal. People murmuring prayers, clutching their offerings like it's the last safe thing they own. A child starts to cry, sharp and sudden, and the sound gets swallowed by the larger noise. You smell incense rising. You smell animal fat beginning to warm. You smell the faint sourness of too many bodies packed into narrow space. And under it all, creeping in like rot, you smell fear sweat, not the quick sweat of work, that cold, nervous sweat that smells like wet wool and regret. A captain steps forward, and you can tell he loves this part. He's got that face. The face of a man about to say, "New policy," like it's a fun surprise. A scroll appears in his hand. You don't even have to see the writing to know it's trouble. Official scrolls never arrive with kindness. They arrive with seals and threats, and somebody behind them who won't get their own hands dirty. The captain reads. Your people lean in, trying to catch meaning through a foreign accent. A few understand enough to translate under their breath, and you watch the color drain from their cheeks like someone pulled a plug. No Sabbath, no circumcision, no sacrifices the way you've always done them, no keeping the calendar God gave you. It's like someone has reached into your chest and started rearranging the organs. You hear a gasp from behind you. Someone mutters a prayer that breaks halfway through. You keep your face still because you're a priest, and priests learn early how to hold panic inside their ribs. But your hands betray you. They curl into fists so tight your nails bite your palms. The soldiers fan out. They don't rush. They don't need to. They move like they own the floor beneath you, like the temple is already a conquered room. And as they spread, you notice what they're carrying. Not just weapons, tools, ropes, wooden beams. A crate dragged by 2 sweating men, the kind of crate that smells like fresh-cut pine and something oily. Your brain tries to make it harmless. Your brain lies. The high priest, whoever is still brave enough to stand upright, steps forward, voice steady but thin. He protests. He uses the words you're supposed to use. Holy, covenant, law, the name. The captain's mouth twitches, the closest thing to a smile you've seen all morning. He gestures, casual. 2 soldiers grab the protesting priest by the arms like they're lifting a sack of grain. The priest's sandals scrape on stone. His linen wrinkles. His face goes from dignified to terrified in one heartbeat. You take a half step forward before you can stop yourself. A spear tip lifts toward your ribs, polite and lethal. You freeze. The priest is hauled back into the crowd, and the message lands without needing translation. There will be no debate today. Your throat tastes like bile. You swallow anyway. The men with the crate set it down. A lid pries open, and the smell that comes out is wrong. It's not incense. It's not the clean, sharp tang of slaughter. It's a heavy, musky stench, like damp hair and barn filth, like an animal that lives in its own appetite. Someone nearby whispers, horrified, "No," because you all recognize that smell. Pig. You feel heat surge up your neck, and for a second, your vision blurs. Not from tears, from sheer, furious disbelief. There are so many animals in the world. Sheep, goats, cattle, doves, even a donkey, if someone was truly having a terrible day. But no, they brought the one animal that feels like an insult with legs. The soldiers drag the pig out. It squeals, high and offended, kicking as if it knows it's in the wrong place. Its skin is pale under bristles. Its breath comes in wet snorts. It smells like mud, sour feed, and the kind of bodily function you normally don't bring into sacred space unless you are actively trying to start a riot. The pig's hooves clack on stone. That sound, those little clacks, lands like blasphemy. A Levite stops singing. His voice just cuts out. One moment, him. Next moment, silence, as if the air itself has decided it cannot participate. All you can hear now is the pig's squeal and the soldier's laughter. Soft laughter, the worst kind. The laughter of men enjoying how powerless you are. They shove you back, not hard enough to knock you down, just hard enough to make you stumble and feel it. This isn't only about changing rules. This is about making you flinch. You look toward the inner court, toward the altar you've tended with trembling devotion since you were old enough to carry a basin. This altar has seen blood, yes, but blood offered. Blood given with prayer. Blood that meant atonement and obedience and mercy. Now you watch foreign hands grab the pig. They hold it down. The animal thrashes. Someone produces a knife. Not a priest's knife. Not a blade washed and set apart. This knife looks like it's cut rope, meat, and maybe a man once. The pig squeals again. It's a shriek that punches straight into your teeth. The knife goes in. Hot blood spills out thick and dark. It splashes on stone that's been kept clean for holiness. The copper smell of blood hits instantly, mixing with pig stink. Your stomach clenches so hard you think you might fold in half. One of the soldiers makes a show of it. He lifts the pig's blood like it's some grand offering. He slops it. Not carefully, not reverently. He slops it the way you slop water onto a fire. And the blood runs over the altar like a smear. A man near you retches. He tries to swallow it back, fails, and suddenly there's vomit on the temple floor. A priest, one of your own, stares at it in numb horror, as if he's watching the world's last thread snap. You want to shout. You want to grab the knife. You want to do anything except stand there and watch your life center get turned into a joke. But the spears are everywhere. The swords are everywhere. And the soldiers have the bored patience of men who can kill you and still be home in time for dinner. They burn the pig on the altar. The smoke that rises is not the smoke you know. It's greasy and heavy. It clings to your hair. It coats your throat. It's the kind of smell that lingers in fabric for days, no matter how much you air it out. Fat crackles, a popping sound, like the altar itself is protesting. Someone behind you starts to sob, quietly, the way people sob when loud grief feels too dangerous. The captain watches your faces like he's reading them for sport. Then he gestures toward the crate again. The beams come out, something wrapped in cloth, something carved. Your mind refuses it for a second. You think absurdly, maybe it's a new piece of furniture. Maybe it's some tribute object. Maybe it's... The cloth pulls away, and there it is, a statue, a god, not the god. A shiny, carved body with perfect muscles and a smug face, the kind of face that looks down on mortals like they're crumbs. Zeus. You know because the soldiers say the name with pride, like they're introducing a celebrity. They start hauling the statue toward the holy place, toward the space you do not enter casually, toward the space you treat like the edge of a cliff. Men who don't know the fear of the name are about to carry an idol into the center of your worship like they're rearranging decorations. It's like watching someone stomp into your mother's house, spit on the table, and call it interior design. You step forward again. The spear tip returns right under your ribs. The soldier holding it doesn't even glare. He looks mildly inconvenienced, like you're a dog that keeps getting underfoot. He nudges you back, a small push, a complete humiliation. The statue gets set up, right there, where it should not be, where it feels like the air itself should ignite in protest. You wait for something, anything to happen. A lightning strike, a crack in the floor, a sudden, terrifying presence that sends these men flying like straw. Instead you get smoke, pig smoke, and the low murmur of soldiers chatting like they're in a market. A man near you whispers, voice shaking, "Abomination." He doesn't say it loudly. He says it like a curse you don't want the air to hear. Abomination, desolation, words with teeth. Because what else do you call it when holiness gets replaced with a sneering idol and a pig's carcass? When worship is hijacked and used as a weapon? The captain speaks again, and the message spreads fast through the crowd in broken whispers. Everyone must offer. Everyone must participate. It's not enough to watch. They want your hands in it. They want your body to confess what your mouth refuses. A soldier grabs a man by the shoulder, just a man, not a priest. A man with tired eyes and a beard that's going grey at the edges. He's holding a small offering, something he brought in faith. The soldier jerks him forward toward the altar. The man's feet scramble on the stone. He protests. He tries to twist away. The soldier tightens his grip and drags him like luggage. They shove something into the man's hands. A pinch of meat. A piece of pig. Still steaming, slick with grease. It glistens in the light like the world's worst gift. The man freezes. His face does something strange, like it collapses inward, like he's trying to leave his body without moving. The captain says something sharp. The soldier thrusts the meat closer to the man's mouth. You can see the man's throat bob as he swallows panic. He shakes his head. Not dramatically, just a small, stubborn no. The soldier hits him, not with a fist, with the flat of a blade, quick and practiced. The sound is sickening, a dull smack that makes everyone flinch as one. The man staggers. Blood appears at his lip. Someone in the crowd cries out, and another soldier immediately turns his spear toward that sound. Silence returns, obedient and shaking. The man is told again, eat, offer, comply. He looks toward you for half a second, like you're supposed to fix it. You can't. Your mouth is dry. Your heart is slamming itself against your ribs. The man opens his mouth and you think he might scream. Instead, he spits. He spits the offered meat onto the stone. It lands with a soft, wet slap. For a heartbeat, nobody moves. Even the pig smoke seems to pause. Then the soldier's face changes. The bored patience drops away. Something ugly steps out. They seize the man. They haul him aside. You don't see exactly what they do because bodies shift, people recoil, and your view is suddenly blocked by shoulders and trembling backs. But you hear it. A sharp cry. A second cry, shorter. Then a wet sound that doesn't belong in a holy place. The crowd sways like a living thing trying not to faint. Someone near you whispers a prayer through clenched teeth. Words tumbling out too fast. Your own hands are shaking again. Not like Daniel in Babylon. Different. This shaking is rage trapped behind fear. The soldiers keep moving through the people. They make examples. They force hands toward the altar. They demand gestures, little motions that seem small until you feel what they cost. Bow, offer, taste. Just a bite. Just a symbol. Just enough to prove you belong to their king now. Your mind flashes to Daniel's vision, to that horn with human eyes. Not a roaring monster. A mouth, words, decrees, calendars. The slow grind of wearing people down. And standing here, smelling pig fat and incense turned sour, you understand something in your bones. This is what it looks like when evil doesn't arrive with fangs. It arrives with policies. It arrives with soldiers and paperwork and a statue that's been measured to fit in your sacred space. It arrives with the demand that you call it normal. You stumble back, away from the center. Your sandals skid on gritty stone. You need air, but the smoke follows you. You need distance, but the temple is the temple. There is no getting away inside your own house. A young priest beside you is crying silently. His lashes are wet. His lips are pressed tight like he's trying to hold his soul inside. You want to put a hand on his shoulder. You don't. Touch feels dangerous right now, like any tenderness might make you collapse. The captain is still talking. You catch a name, spoken with a smug flourish. Antiochus. Antiochus Epiphanes. The king who calls himself manifest, like he's a god walking around in a robe. You've heard the rumors for years. How he styles himself with titles that don't belong to men. How he loves Greek games and shiny culture and looking civilized. How he smiles, charming and polished. Right up until he decides to peel your life apart. Now his name is in your temple, riding on smoke. It tastes like ash. You think it can't get worse. Your brain again lies. Soldiers begin searching. They move into side rooms. They shove through storage spaces. They overturn baskets. They kick jars. Oil spills across stone. A lamp falls, shatters, and suddenly the smell of rancid olive oil fills the air, thick and nauseating. They aren't just here to desecrate. They're here to erase. They find scrolls. Some hidden, some not hidden enough. A soldier holds one up with 2 fingers like it's something sticky. He squints at the writing, unimpressed. Then he tears it. The sound is small. That's the worst part. A little rip, like cloth, like nothing. The crowd makes a noise, half gasp, half moan. The soldier tears again, and again. The scroll becomes strips, holy words reduced to fluttering scraps. He drops them on the ground. His boot comes down, grinding ink into dust. Another soldier lights a torch. Someone feeds the torn pieces to flame. The smell of burning parchment is sharp and bitter. It doesn't smell like wood. It smells like loss. You see an older priest sway, his face pale. He grips a pillar, knuckles white, like he might faint. He whispers, barely audible. They're burning the law. His voice cracks. Your eyes sting, but the tears don't fall. Your body is choosing survival over grief, storing the grief for later. Somewhere else in the city, you know altars are going up. Not here, not just in the temple. In streets, in doorways. Little shrines for foreign gods, right where your neighbors buy bread, right where your children run, right where you should be able to live without constantly stepping over someone else's idol. You can already hear it, even without leaving. The distant chant of Greek hymns, the laughter of men who think faith is a quaint superstition, the sickening cheerfulness of forced celebration, a festival calendar shoved into your hands like an invoice. You back into a corner of the court, trying to breathe through the smoke. Your throat burns, your eyes water, your skin feels greasy, coated with pig fat and humiliation. You look at the statue again. It stands there, gleaming, smug, exactly where it should never stand. And it's not just the statue. It's what the statue represents. A king who wants your worship. A ruler who doesn't merely want taxes. He wants your soul to bend. He wants your mouth to say the words. He wants you to look at the abomination and pretend it belongs. You feel that pressure in the air, in the way soldiers watch, in the way your own people glance at each other with frantic calculations. Who will comply? Who will refuse? Who will live? Who will die? Because it's never just one big dramatic moment. It's 100 small moments. A hand hovering over forbidden meat. A father deciding whether to protect his children by lying. A mother hiding a scroll under flour sacks while soldiers stomp through her home. A young man being told he can have comfort and status if he only stops being so stubborn. The slow grind, the wearing down, the changing of times, the changing of laws, and standing there, you realize the cruel genius of it. They're not only attacking bodies, they're attacking rhythms. They're trying to make your week feel wrong, your year feel wrong, your whole sense of we are God's people feel like an outdated costume you should be embarrassed to wear. A soldier near you starts eating, just casually. He's got a strip of something greasy in his hand, chewing with his mouth open like he's trying to be seen doing it. Pig meat, in the temple. He licks his fingers. He wipes his hand on his tunic, leaving a smear. You want to throw up again, and you're not even the one eating. The day drags on, awful and endless. By the time the soldiers finally begin to pull back, the temple feels unfamiliar. Not destroyed, worse. Still standing, but violated. Like someone broke into your house, didn't steal anything, and just left filth everywhere to prove they could. The statue remains. The stink remains. The greasy smoke clings to the stones, to your hair, to the folds of your linen. People shuffle out in silence, eyes down, moving like they've been aged 10 years in one afternoon. Outside, the city looks the same at first glance. Same walls, same streets, same sun. But everything feels shifted, like the world is wearing your world's skin. You walk, slow and stiff, through alleys that smell like sour wine and baked dust. You pass a market stall where meat hangs in strips, flies gathering. You can't tell what kind of meat, and that alone makes your stomach lurch. You pass a group of boys laughing loudly in Greek, showing off words like new knives. You pass a new little altar by a doorway, smoke rising from it. A woman stands nearby, eyes blank, holding a small offering like she's been threatened into politeness. You keep walking. Your sandals scuff through grit and something sticky you refuse to identify. Your hands keep trembling, not because you're weak, because you're trying not to explode. That night the city doesn't sleep. You hear doors being kicked. You hear shouting. You hear the short, sharp sounds of people being dragged out of their homes. You smell smoke in the distance, not cooking, smoke, burning smoke. You lie on a thin mat that feels like it was designed by someone who hates spines. Your bones ache. Your mind won't stop replaying the statue going up, the pig squealing, the blade smacking that man's face, the scroll tearing. And in the dark, the words come back. Abomination, desolation. You don't say them out loud. You don't want the air to get used to them. Days pass. The pressure becomes routine, which is its own kind of horror. Soldiers patrol like they've always belonged. People whisper less because whispers are dangerous. Some comply because hunger is persuasive. Some refuse because conscience can be louder than fear. You watch neighbors disappear. You watch some return, eyes hollow, carrying the quiet shame of survival. You watch others never return. You find yourself measuring every choice now. What you eat, what you say, how long you linger near a doorway, whether you greet someone in the street, because greeting can look like agreement. It's exhausting. It's the kind of exhausting that settles into your joints. Your faith doesn't feel like a song anymore. It feels like carrying water uphill with cracked hands. And still, the abomination stands. A statue where it should not be. A king's joke sitting in your sacred space. A constant gleaming demand. Bow. One afternoon, you slip through a narrow passage to visit someone you trust. The house smells like lentils and damp plaster. A baby fusses softly in the corner. The mother hushes it with the tired precision of someone who can't afford noise. In the back room, behind a stack of baskets, someone has hidden a scroll fragment. Just a fragment, a few lines of ink. They show it to you like it's contraband gold. Your fingers hover, then touch. You feel the roughness of the parchment. You smell the faint, comforting scent of ink. It shouldn't feel comforting, but it does. Because it's yours. Because it's holy. Because it's a piece of the world that hasn't been successfully rewritten. You look at the lines, and your throat tightens again. Not because you're about to cry. Because you recognize the language of warning. You recognize what Daniel saw. You recognize what you're living. A ruler who talks big. A ruler who reshapes worship. A ruler who makes himself the center. A ruler who wins for a while. Your friend whispers, "It happened," just like the vision. You nod, slow. Your mouth won't form easy words. Outside, a soldier laughs. The laugh is bright, careless, young. It makes you want to throw something. You leave the house as the sun dips and the streets glow orange. For a second, the city looks almost beautiful. Then you smell the altars again. Greasy smoke, foreign incense, the faint sweetness of spilled wine offered to gods that don't hear. Your stomach turns. Time, being the rude thing it is, keeps moving. Years grind forward. The oppression shifts, flares, tightens, loosens, tightens again. You hear stories, whispers that travel faster than soldiers. A family that refused and died. A priest who complied and was never trusted again. Men who fled to hills and caves, living like hunted animals. A spark of revolt beginning to catch in villages. A stubborn refusal refusing to die. But that day in the temple stays lodged in you. Not as a memory, as a bruise. And then, because history has no respect for your ability to cope, time lurches again. You blink, and the stones under your feet feel different. Still Jerusalem, still dust, still that sun that bakes everything until it smells like warm rock. But the streets are fuller now, louder, different accents, different clothes. Roman soldiers this time, lounging with the bored arrogance of men who think empire is permanent. You catch the scent of fish and sweat and crushed herbs from a nearby stall. You're moving with a crowd toward the temple again, because where else do people go when they're hungry for hope? There's a man walking ahead, and the crowd leans toward him like plants leaning toward light. He's not dressed like a king. No shining armor, no purple robe, no polished statue face. Just a man, dusty at the hem, speaking in a voice that carries. You're close enough to see the lines at the corners of his eyes, close enough to see the way he looks at the temple. Not like a tourist, like someone who knows what it's supposed to be. He talks about coming trouble, not vague trouble, specific trouble, the kind that makes the back of your neck prickle. He speaks about deception, about people claiming authority they don't have, about destruction close enough to taste. And then he says words that hit you like a hand closing around your throat. He speaks of the abomination of desolation, standing where it ought not. Your skin goes cold, because you know that phrase. You've lived that phrase. You've smelled it. You've watched it get erected with ropes and beams and smug grins. The crowd around you shifts, restless, not everyone understanding the weight, but you do. Your mind flashes back to Antiochus's men, to pig smoke in holy space. You hear again the tearing of scrolls. You see again the statue gleaming where it should not. And this man, this teacher, talks like it's not only a scar in the past. He talks like it's a warning for ahead. He says that when it happens, you don't stand around arguing. You don't linger to pack. You don't politely finish your errands. You get out. You run. You flee to the mountains like your feet are on fire. The air feels too thin for a moment. Your heart beats hard and you taste dust. Because if it can happen again, that means Antiochus wasn't the final nightmare. He was a preview, a rehearsal in the worst theatre imaginable. The crowd presses closer, hungry for more, hungry for comfort. But comfort isn't what you're getting. You're getting clarity. You're getting the sick realization that sacred spaces can be targeted, that worship can be hijacked, that rulers don't always arrive as obvious villains. Sometimes they arrive with charm. Sometimes they arrive with culture and progress and very reasonable sounding demands. Sometimes they arrive with the offer of safety, as long as you just bend a little. Just a gesture, just a word, just a pinch of meat. And once you've bent, they don't stop. They never stop at one bow. They keep going until they've trained your body to obey before your mind even catches up. You look up at the temple again. It stands there, enormous, gleaming. People move in and out with offerings. Priests work, hands red with sacrifice. It looks stable. It looks eternal. You can almost smell incense again and pretend the world is sensible, but your memory won't let you. You know how fast a holy place can become a stage for someone else's ego. You know how quickly soldiers can turn worship into compliance. You know how a statue can appear and just remain. And the teacher's voice keeps going over the crowd, steady, not frantic, not theatrical, certain, as if he's seen the ending already, as if he knows that abominations rise and fall like waves. You feel that old fear again, the kind Daniel carried in Babylon, not the fear of beasts with iron teeth, the fear of a mouth that speaks, a mouth that convinces people to clap while the altar is being defiled, a mouth that calls darkness order and makes the crowd repeat it. You stand there with the sun on your face and the dust in your throat, and you realize something bleak and useful. The worst evil doesn't always smash the temple stones first. Sometimes it walks in, smiling, and sets up furniture. Sometimes it brings its own calendar. Sometimes it demands a ceremony. Sometimes it asks for worship with the tone of a man who assumes you'll be reasonable. And if you've seen it once, you can recognize the smell of it when it starts again. Not the pig smell, Though yes, that too. The other smell. The smell of holy things being treated like props. The smell of pressure disguised as peace. The smell of a world being told, softly at first, to bow. The crowd begins to move, drifting away like a tide pulling back. The teacher and his followers keep walking, their figures shrinking against stone and sky. You remain for a moment, staring at the temple, feeling the weight of memory and warning sitting together in your chest. Jerusalem's noise swells again. Merchants, footsteps, distant shouting. A donkey braying like it has opinions. Life keeps going. Empires keep building their scaffolds. And somewhere ahead, you can almost hear the first tap of boots on stone again, patient and confident, coming closer with ropes, beams, and a plan. 300 years pass, and you feel the world change under your feet. The temple is still there, sometimes in stone, sometimes only in memory. And a new warning arrives anyway. The first thing you notice is the smell. Not pig smoke this time. Not scorched fat and humiliation. This is fish brine, damp wool, old olive oil, and the unmistakable human aroma of too many people trying to be holy in a room built for 8. You duck through a low doorway in Thessalonica and immediately regret every choice that led you to being tall. Your shoulder brushes the doorframe, leaving a little stripe of dust on your tunic, like the house itself has marked you as not from around here. Inside, the air is warm and wet. Oil lamps breathe out that sooty, nose-prickling smell that clings to hair and turns every wall into a slow-moving shadow. People are packed in close, knees touching, elbows bumping, sandals overlapping like an accidental pile of feet. Privacy is a myth. Personal space is a rumor. And somebody near you has brought a cloak that's still drying from yesterday's rain, so the whole room carries this sour, woolly funk like a damp dog that has found God. You slide onto the edge of a bench. The wood is polished by other anxious bodies, and it creaks like it's about to file a complaint. A woman shifts to make space, and her basket nudges your shin. Bread inside, cheap barley stuff, the kind that tastes like it was baked out of spite. Your stomach wants it anyway. Nobody is eating. Nobody is doing anything normal. They're whispering, not gentle whispers either, like a lullaby. This is sharp, hissing whispering, the kind that says, I heard something, and no, you didn't, and yes, I did, and are you sure, and I'm telling you, my cousin's friend. Someone's eyes are red from crying. Someone else keeps rubbing their hands together like they're trying to scrub off a thought. A young man near the wall bounces his knee, so fast you expect smoke to come off his sandal. And in the middle of it all is a single, horrible sentence floating from mouth to mouth like a fly you can't swat. The day of the Lord already came. You missed it. You can feel the panic under the room's skin. It's in the tight shoulders, the clenched jaws, the way people keep glancing at the door as if Jesus might walk in and say, well, that was awkward. It's not just fear, it's embarrassment mixed with terror, which is a uniquely human flavor. Like showing up late to a wedding and realizing the bride married someone else and also the building is on fire. You lean toward the man beside you, voice low. What happened? He looks at you like you've asked what happened to the sky. Word came, he whispers, breath smelling faintly of onions and worry. A message. Some say, Paul said it. Paul. The name lands with weight. You've never met him maybe, or maybe you have. Back when he first came through, when he spoke about a crucified Messiah with the confidence of a man who's been beaten enough times to stop caring what you think. Either way, his words travel, his words stick, and now his name is being used like a knife. In the back, someone mutters, There was a letter. Another voice snaps, or a prophecy. Someone else says, or a spirit. Like that clears it up. The room shudders with that particular dread that comes when spiritual people start talking about messages you can't verify. Because how do you argue with the spirit said? Do you ask for the spirit's credentials? Do you request the spirit sign the guest book? People keep bringing it back to the same thing. The day is here. Judgment is already rolling. And if you weren't ready, if you weren't watching, if you weren't pure enough, then you're done. It's amazing how quickly hope can curdle into accusation. You can feel it happening. A woman in the corner holds her infant close, rocking without rhythm. She keeps staring at the baby's face like she's trying to memorize it before it's taken. Across from her, an older man's lips move in silent prayer, but his eyes are wild. Someone has the look of a person who hasn't slept in days because every time they close their eyes, they see the sky tearing open. You can't blame them. You've lived under Rome. You've seen what power does when it gets bored. The idea that God's final day might arrive without warning while you're out buying lentils is the kind of thought that can turn your bones to water. The murmuring rises and falls like waves, and then it changes. A hush runs through the room, starting at the doorway. Not the soft hush of respect, the startled hush of people who just spotted the courier. He steps in, cheeks flushed from running, hair damp with sweat. His sandals are dusty, and his tunic has that travel stink of sun-baked salt and road grime. He's holding something, a rolled parchment, tied, sealed. Your heart kicks once hard, because everybody knows what this might be. A real letter, not a rumor, not a cousin's friend's vision. Ink on parchment, words you can point to. The messenger doesn't make a speech. He doesn't need to. He hands the roll to the leader of the gathering, an older believer with strong hands and tired eyes. And you watch those hands take it like it's both treasure and a snake. The seal is broken. The cord unwinds. The parchment crackles as it opens, a dry, papery sound that somehow feels louder than any shout. Oil lamplight flickers across the ink. The reader clears his throat. That sound, just a throat clearing, hits you with a weird rush of emotion, because the room has been living on rumors, and now it's about to live on words. He begins. The first lines are greeting, comfort, familiar rhythm, but the room is too tight with fear to relax into it. Everyone is waiting for the part that will either save them or finish them. You shift on the bench. The wood complains. Someone's elbow jabs your side, and nobody apologizes. There's no energy left for manners. Then the reader's voice changes. It tightens, like he's coming to the sentence he's been dreading. And he says it, not in a soothing tone, in a firm tone, like somebody grabbing you by the shoulders to stop you from running into a wall. Don't be shaken. Don't be alarmed. Not by a spirit. Not by a spoken word. Not by a letter that looks like it came from Paul. The room exhales, but it's shaky, because that means what you already suspected. Someone forged it. Someone weaponized his name. And suddenly the panic feels even dirtier, because it wasn't just fear. It was a con. Your stomach twists. You picture some smooth-talking troublemaker in a market, making their voice solemn, saying, "Paul says the day has come," and watching the faces around them drain of color. Ancient scams aren't even creative. They're just slower. The reader goes on. That day won't come unless something happens first. A falling away, a rebellion, an apostasy, people peeling off, abandoning the truth like a cheap sandal strap snapping at the worst possible moment. You feel a ripple move through the room, because you've already seen it, not on a grand stage, in little ways. A man who used to sing now sits silent, arms crossed, face hard. A woman who used to welcome strangers now won't meet your eyes. People get tired. People get scared. People get tempted by the promise of safety if they'll just stop being so stubborn. And Paul's words land like a cold hand on the back of your neck. It comes first, not after, first. Then the reader's voice drops lower, not because he's being dramatic, but because the room seems to shrink around the next lines. The man of lawlessness will be revealed. A person, not a vague mist of evil, not just bad times. A man, lawlessness with a face. You hear someone swallow hard. It's loud in the hush. The reader keeps going, and you can almost feel the words scratching their way into the room's plaster. This man opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God and every object of worship. He doesn't just want power. He wants the top shelf. He wants the seat. He wants the category. He wants to be the thing everyone looks at when they say the word holy. And then comes the line that makes your skin go tight. He takes his seat in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. The room reacts like somebody just threw cold water. A few people make involuntary sounds, small gasps, little choked noises. Someone near you whispers, "No," like they can refuse the sentence. Temple. That word carries Jerusalem in it. It carries stone and smoke and blood and songs. It carries the memory of foreign boots on holy floors. It carries statues where they should not be. And now, here it is again. Not pig fat this time. Not Zeus, maybe. Something worse. A man sitting down, taking the posture of authority like he owns it. Like God is the guest and he's the host. Your mind jumps, uninvited, to thrones you've seen. Roman magistrates on their chairs, bored and smug. City officials in their clean robes, listening to pleas like they're judging the quality of a fish. It's always the seat. The seat says, "I decide." The seat says, "You stand while I sit." The seat says, "You are small." And Paul is saying this lawless man takes the ultimate seat, the God seat, in God's temple, and calls himself God with a straight face. The reader pauses just long enough for the room to absorb the horror. Then he reads what feels like the most frustrating line in the entire letter. Paul says, basically, "You already know this. Don't you remember I told you when I was with you?" You can almost hear Paul's voice behind the ink, half exasperated, like, "We covered this, people." You look around. Nobody in this room looks like they remember anything except panic, because fear has a way of deleting your memory. Fear makes you forget the last meal you ate, let alone a teaching from months ago. Then the reader reaches the part everyone leans into without realizing they're leaning, the part that sounds like it's about to explain everything and instead makes it stranger. You know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. Restraining. Something is holding this back. Something is keeping the lawless man from stepping onto the stage before the time is right. The room's faces tighten, because the instinct is immediate. What is it? Who is it? Where is it? Can we meet it? Can we feed it? Can we ask it to stay? Your brain, being your brain, starts grabbing for possibilities. Is it Rome? Is it some angel? Is it God himself just pressing a hand down like, "Not yet"? Is it something in the city? Some authority? Some barrier? Some invisible lock on a door? Paul doesn't spell it out in the letter. He just says, "You know," which is wildly unhelpful if you weren't in the room when he first explained it. It's like receiving instructions that begin, "As you can see from the diagram," and there is no diagram. The reader continues, and the words get even more unsettling. The mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Already, not someday, not only at the end, It's running right now, like a rat under the floorboards. You don't always see it. You hear it. You smell it. You notice things shifting, people bending, truth getting treated like something optional, like a preference, like a flavor of the week. And Paul is saying it's active. A mystery, yes, but not dormant. Only the restrainer holds it back until he is out of the way. There it is again. That vague he. The restrainer is described like a person, or at least like a force with agency. He's in the way. One day he won't be, and the room feels the weight of that absence. Because you know what it's like when something that's been holding back violence suddenly steps aside. It's like a door unlatched. It's like a dam cracking. It's like guards deciding they're tired and walking off while the mob is still hungry. Your mouth is dry. The oil lamp smoke scratches your throat. Somebody shifts, and their knee knocks yours. You barely feel it. You're staring at the idea forming in the air. Evil waiting for its moment. Held back, straining against the leash. And then, Paul doesn't let the fear just sit there and breed. The reader's voice rises slightly, not with cheerfulness, but with certainty. Then the lawless one will be revealed, and the Lord Jesus will kill him with the breath of his mouth. Breath, not sword, not army, not siege engines and weeks of starvation. Breath. It's such a simple word, it almost feels insulting. You've watched men die. You've seen what it takes usually. Steel, force, blood, a messy, ugly struggle. And Paul says the end of this man is breath, like fog in winter, like blowing out a lamp, like God doesn't even have to stand up, and he will bring him to nothing by the appearance of his coming. The room loosens in tiny ways at that, not fully, but enough that you can tell everyone heard it. The end is already spoken. The monster is real, but so is the kill switch. Your shoulders drop a fraction without permission. Then Paul goes right back into describing how this lawless man operates. Because it matters. It matters for people like you, sitting in a cramped room, trying not to be fooled. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan, with all power and false signs and wonders. False signs, not nothing, not cheap party tricks, not, look, I pulled a coin from behind your ear. Signs that look like they belong to God. Wonders that make your stomach flip and your skin prickle and your eyes widen. The kind of thing that makes people say, it must be true, because humans are like that. Show us something shiny and we will follow it into a ditch with full confidence. Paul says, this man comes with all wicked deception for those who are perishing. Why? Because they refuse to love the truth and be saved. That sentence lands heavy, because it doesn't say they didn't hear the truth. It says they refuse to love it. Love. Not merely agree with, not nod politely at. Love the truth the way you love water when you're thirsty. The way you love light when you've been in a cave. The way you love a real voice when you've been surrounded by lies. And the room is quiet again. But it's a different quiet. Less panic. More realization. Because if deception is coming, and if it's convincing, then the only way through isn't cleverness. It's affection. It's loyalty. It's holding on to truth when it stops being trendy and starts being costly. Then comes another line that makes the air feel colder. God sends them a strong delusion, so they may believe what is false, so that all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Pleasure. That's the word that stings, because unrighteousness isn't always a grim, miserable thing people do while crying. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's profitable. Sometimes it comes with applause and fewer beatings. Sometimes it tastes like relief. And Paul is saying, people will choose it, not by accident. with pleasure. You glance around. You see faces tightening not in fear now, but in discomfort, because nobody likes hearing that they could be fooled. Nobody likes hearing that the trap works, because it offers something you secretly want. You shift your hands in your lap, fingers rubbing together. The reader's voice softens. He moves into gratitude. He thanks God for these believers. He calls them beloved, chosen, sanctified. He talks about holding fast to what they were taught, whether by spoken word or letter. Hold fast. The phrase feels physical, like gripping a rope over a drop, and your mind, tired from fear, latches onto the sheer practicality of it. Not figure out every rumor, not count every sign. Hold fast. A baby fusses again in the corner, and its little unhappy sounds cut through the heaviness like a reminder. Life is still here. People still need feeding. Diapers, if you can call them that, still need changing. Nobody in this room gets to live permanently in prophecy mode. You still have to wake up and fetch water that tastes faintly of clay. You still have to work until your back aches. You still have to buy bread and hope the seller didn't cut it with something exciting like ground up husk. Paul's letter is not giving you an escape hatch. It's giving you a spine. The reader comes to the part that feels like a hand placed on your head, steadying you. A blessing, comfort, good hope, strength for every good work and word. You don't feel fireworks. You feel something better. You feel the room stop shaking, not because the world is safe, because the rumor lost its power, because the day did not sneak past while you were blinking, because there are steps, because there is order, because there is an end promise for the one who thinks he can sit in God's seat. As the reading finishes, people don't jump up cheering. They just sit there, absorbing. A few wipe their eyes. Someone lets out a laugh that's half relief and half embarrassment, like they've been caught believing something ridiculous. Another person mutters, "So we weren't abandoned." It's not a dramatic statement. It's small. It's everything. The leader carefully rolls the parchment back up. His fingers are gentle, like he's handling something alive. The messenger drinks from a cup, and you can hear the gulping in the quiet. Water in clay tastes like the cup. It always tastes like the cup, but you still envy him for drinking like someone who expects to see tomorrow. Outside the house, the city continues as if nothing happened. You can hear it through the walls. Distant voices, a cartwheel rattling, a donkey making a long complaint to the universe. Somewhere, someone is frying something in oil that's been used too many times, and the smell sneaks in under the door, greasy and tempting. Empires do not pause. Markets do not pause. But you sit there with Paul's words in your chest, and they don't feel like a puzzle. They feel like a warning label on a jar of something dangerous, not to terrify you into paralysis, to stop you from drinking poison because the bottle looked impressive. You look at the faces around you again. These are ordinary people, calloused hands, tired eyes, a scar on a knuckle from a bad tool, a missing tooth, a smear of flour on a sleeve. Nobody here looks like the kind of person who's going to fight the man of lawlessness with a heroic speech. You're just trying to survive Rome and keep your faith from being worn down to dust. And Paul, from wherever he is, travel-stained, hunted, stubborn, has sent you this. The lawless one will come. He will be convincing. He will sit where he shouldn't sit. He will talk like he owns heaven. He will back it up with signs that make people clap. Something restrains him for now. And when the time comes, he will be ended as easily as breath extinguishing a flame. You stand to leave, careful not to step on anyone's toes. That's harder than it sounds. A few people clasp your arm as you pass, not in celebration, in solidarity. Their hands are warm. Their grip is tight. Outside, the air is cooler, and you can smell the sea on the wind, salty and clean compared to the lampsoot room you just escaped. You walk into the street and immediately have to dodge a child carrying something sloshing in a jar. The child mutters an apology without slowing down. Classic Thessalonica. The sky overhead is ordinary. No tearing open, no trumpet. Just clouds moving like they've got errands. You keep walking, sandals scuffing on stone, feeling the letters' phrases replay. Not the panic parts, the firm parts. Don't be shaken. Hold fast. Restrained for now. Breath in the end. And somewhere in the city behind you, that house stays where it is. A cramped room, a rolled parchment, a handful of people refusing to be whipped into hysteria by a forged message. The lamps will burn down. The room will empty. The walls will keep their soot stains. But the warning will keep traveling, from mouth to mouth, from hand to hand. Not as a rumor, as a weighty thing you can carry. Even when the boots start tapping again, patient and confident, somewhere down the road. But Paul wasn't the last to see this figure. 40 years later, the sea smell gets stronger, sharper, like the world is being pickled. You're not in Thessalonica anymore. You're on a rocky island where Rome sends people it's tired of listening to. Patmos. It's the kind of place that looks like it was designed by someone who hates bare feet. Jagged stone everywhere, sun that roasts the top of your head, wind that sandblasts your lips. The ground is all grit and stubborn weeds. The plants doing their best with what can only be described as aggressive disappointment. The cave is worse, not in a dramatic haunted way, in a practical miserable way. Damp stone sweats. The ceiling is low enough that your neck learns humility fast. The air smells like salt, old smoke, and that sour human note you get when a person has been wearing the same situation for too long. There's a man in here with you, old, thin, the kind of thin that doesn't come from a diet plan. His hair is white, his beard is untamed, and his hands look like they've been gripping reality by the edges for decades. John, he's sitting on a rough patch of rock like it's a chair, because on Patmos, everything is either a rock or trying to become one. Near him is the sad little exile's buffet, a hunk of bread that could double as a tool, a few dried fish that smell like regret, and a clay cup with water that tastes like the cup. Outside, gulls scream like they're personally offended you exist. The wind shoves itself into the cave mouth, bringing sea spray and the distant stink of seaweed rotting in the sun. Somewhere out there, waves slap the shore over and over, like they're trying to wear the island down through sheer pettiness. John's eyes are open, but not really looking at you. He's listening, not to the gulls, not to the sea, to something that makes his whole face go still. You shift your weight, and your sandals scrape stone. The sound feels too loud, like you've interrupted a courtroom. John inhales, and it's the kind of inhale that comes right before a man says something that changes you. Only he doesn't speak. The cave light changes, not like a cloud passed, not like the sun moved, like reality got peeled back. The air tightens, and every hair on your arm stands up like it just remembered what fear is. Your mouth goes dry. The sea noise drops away, muffled, as if someone shoved wool in the world's ears. John's head tilts slightly, as if he's hearing music you can't. Then it hits you, that sensation of standing too close to a huge door as it opens. Not a door made of wood either, a door made of elsewhere. Heaven tears open. It's not gentle. It's not a calm, spiritual moment where everyone feels peaceful and writes poetry. It's a rupture, Light doesn't drift in. It pours hard and heavy, like you've been living at the bottom of a well, and the sun has decided to come down personally. John's face shines in it, every wrinkle suddenly sharp. His eyes widen, his lips part. He looks like a man being shown the inside of a furnace and told, "This is fine, take notes." And then the vision takes you too, like a riptide. You're not in the cave anymore. You're standing on the edge of a sea that doesn't look like the Aegean. This water is darker, thicker. It moves like it's thinking. The surface rolls and heaves, and the smell is wrong. Briny, yes, but also metallic, like blood in salt water. The sky above is bruised, heavy with stormlight. Wind whips your clothing. Salt stings your eyes. The sand under your feet is cold and wet, and it clings to your toes like it's trying to keep you from running. Then the water bulges. Not a wave, a swelling, like something massive is pushing up from underneath, impatient. The sea breaks. Something rises. At first, your brain can't count it. It refuses. It tries to simplify the shape into something sane and fails immediately. A beast. 7 heads, 10 horns. And on the chibe, horns, crowns. Not modest little headpieces either. These are loud, arrogant, polished symbols of, I get to decide what happens to you. The kind of thing a man wears when he wants everyone around him to feel small. Its body is a nightmare collage, like someone took the scariest parts of different predators and made a single, sponsored monstrosity. It's got the sleek strength of a leopard, the heavy, brutal paws of a bear, a lion's mouth wide and confident made for tearing. It haws itself up from the sea and water sheets off it in ropes. The drops hit the shore and hiss, like the ocean itself is angry it had to give this thing up. Each head turns, scanning. 7 sets of eyes, and every one of them has that look. Not wild animal hunger. Calculating hunger. On its heads are names, blasphemous names. The letters burn in your mind even if you can't read them all fast enough, like graffiti scrawled across a temple wall, daring anyone to scrub it off. It's the spiritual equivalent of someone walking into the holiest place you know and putting their feet on the table. The beast opens its mouth. Words come out. Not animal noise, speech. Big, swelling, self-important speech. Like a politician who's discovered mirrors and never recovered. The sound of it crawls under your skin. It doesn't just insult God. It talks like God is a rumor and the beast is the fact. Beside you, John's presence feels small and tense, like an old man trying to keep his heart from leaping out of his ribs. You want to look away. You can't. The air itself holds your face toward it. Behind the beast, something else moves. A shadow larger than the horizon. A dragon. Not a cute storybook dragon. Not a festival puppet. This is ancient, enormous malice given shape. Its scales catch the stormlight like broken pottery glazed with fire. Its eyes lock onto the beast like a proud patron watching their favorite performer take the stage. The dragon leans in. There's a moment, quiet, sickening, where it feels like you're watching a coronation in reverse. The dragon gives the beast power, authority, a throne. Not a physical chair you can point to, but you feel it settle onto the beast like a cloak, like a mantle of permission to do what it wants. And the beast, it stands there dripping seawater, wearing its new authority like it always owned it. One of the heads looks wrong, not dead, but damaged, like it took a fatal wound and forgot to stay dead. A gash, deep and ugly, like something split it open. The kind of injury that should end a creature's story right there in the sand, with scavengers circling. But it's healed. Healed like time got rewound. Healed like death got embarrassed and backed off. You feel the world react, not with caution, with awe. A sound rises from somewhere behind you. Voices, many voices, like a crowd gathering fast. You turn and there they are. People, so many people. Not just one nation, one city, one empire. Everyone. Faces of all kinds, clothing of all kinds, languages spilling over each other like market noise. You catch flashes. A merchant's stained tunic, a soldier's belt, a woman's head covering, a child clinging to a man's leg. Their eyes are fixed on the beast. Their mouths hang open. And then the worship begins. It's not polite. It's not restrained. It's that full-bodied human surrender that makes your stomach twist. Hands lift. Knees drop. Foreheads hit ground. People are crying, shouting, laughing like they just found the answer to everything. They worship the dragon because the dragon gave the beast its authority. They worship the beast because the beast looks unstoppable. You hear it, what they're saying. Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? It's not just admiration, it's relief. Like they've been waiting for something powerful enough to end their fear, and they don't care what it costs. The beast's mouth keeps moving, boasts, blasphemies, words that slap at heaven, daring it to respond. It speaks against God, against God's name, against God's dwelling, against anyone who lives with their loyalty pointed upward. And time gets measured. 42 months, not forever. Long enough to grind people down, long enough to make courage feel expensive. The beast steps forward, and it isn't just talking anymore. It's making war, not against armies, against the saints, against the ones who won't bow. You see it like a wave of pressure moving through the crowd. People are singled out, marked, dragged forward, pushed down. The beast's authority turns into hands, human hands, doing the work for it. And the awful part is how normal it looks. Not everyone is foaming at the mouth with evil. Some faces look bored, like this is paperwork. Some look righteous, like they're cleaning the city. Some look scared but willing, because fear makes people do things they never thought they'd do. The beast wins. That lands like a stone in your gut. You've seen Rome win. You've seen power win. This looks like that, only amplified. It's the same crushing sensation, the helplessness, the way the air feels thinner when you realize no one is coming to stop it. The beast's rule spreads over tribes, peoples, tongues, nations. It doesn't stop at borders because it doesn't care about borders. And the world keeps worshipping. Everyone whose name isn't written where it should be, everyone untethered, falls into the same motion. Bow, praise, obey. Like the whole earth has become one enormous temple, and this thing is the idol. John's breath is ragged beside you. His hands clench, knuckles pale. He looks like he wants to shout, but the vision doesn't pause for human feelings. You're watching a world where loyalty becomes illegal, where refusing to worship isn't just a personal choice, it's an act of war. And now we arrive at the part where the beast doesn't do it alone, because evil loves a team. The sand under your feet shudders, not from the sea this time, from the land. The ground splits in a dry crack, and something rises up out of the earth like a bad surprise in a field. A second beast, smaller at first glance, but that's like saying a dagger is smaller than a sword. It still ends your day. This one looks safer. It has 2 horns like a lamb. That detail almost makes your chest loosen, because lamb means innocence, right? Then it opens its mouth. The voice that comes out is dragon voice. That same cold authority, that same ancient contempt. The lamb horns are cosmetic. The sound is the truth. It steps forward, and it doesn't take the spotlight from the first beast. It serves it. It exercises the first beast's authority in its presence, like a deputy with a badge. It moves through the world, telling people what reality is now, and the world nods along, grateful to be told what to do. It makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, not by forcing them at spear point, at least not at first, by persuading them, by dazzling them. It performs great signs, and you feel the crowd's mood shift again, hungry for spectacle. Humans love a show, especially when it comes with certainty, especially when it comes with power they can lean on. Fire falls from heaven, not metaphor, not a poetic fire. Actual fire dropping out of the sky in front of everyone. You feel the heat on your face. You smell burning hair, burning cloth, burning offerings thrown down in panic or devotion. The crowd recoils and then surges forward again, shouting over each other. You can't even blame them for being stunned. If you saw fire drop from the sky on command, you'd need a minute too. The second beast uses these signs to deceive. It has that polished, convincing energy, the kind that makes lies feel like common sense. It points to the first beast like a hype man. With a divine-looking resume, it tells the people to make an image of the first beast, an icon, a statue, a physical object you can see and touch and march around. Something you can put in a public square so nobody can pretend they didn't know who's in charge now. And you watch it happen. Workers hauling stone, metal being heated, hammers ringing, sweat pouring down faces, the smell of hot iron and charcoal, the busy, practical, everyday industry of building something monstrous. It's like watching a city build a guillotine and call it progress. The image is raised. It stands there, cold, towering, smug in its stillness. People gather around it, craning their necks, murmuring prayers that make your skin crawl. Someone throws flowers down. Someone else throws themselves down. Then the second beast does something that makes your stomach drop through the sand. It gives breath to the image. Breath. That word again, but twisted. The statue isn't supposed to breathe. Stone doesn't inhale. Metal doesn't speak. But the image speaks. You hear it. A voice coming from something that should be silent forever. The sound isn't warm. It's not human in a comforting way. It's official, like a proclamation read by a man with soldiers behind him. And the image's voice carries a simple policy: worship or die. It doesn't come with nuance. No appeals process. No paperwork. No. We'll circle back next quarter. Just a clean, brutal requirement. Bow to the image of the beast, or your story ends in public. You see it happen, not as one big dramatic massacre, but as a series of moments. People dragged forward, people pleading, people trembling, their knees buckling, some collapsing into worship with sobs of relief because they want to live, some standing there, shaking, refusing. Their faces are ordinary. That's the terrible part. They look like the people you sat beside in Thessalonica. They look like neighbors, like bakers, like fishermen, like tired mothers, and they're killed. The crowd watches. Some cheer. Some look away. Some stare with that empty expression of a person whose conscience just packed its bag and left. Your throat tightens. John's eyes squeeze shut for a second, then open again, forced to keep seeing. The second beast isn't done. Killing is messy. It draws attention. It creates martyrs, and martyrs are inconvenient because they leave stories behind. This beast wants something cleaner, control that reaches into your daily life. It causes everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand or on the forehead. You feel your own hand twitch like it wants to hide. You feel your forehead itch, suddenly aware of your skin like it's vulnerable real estate. The mark isn't just a tattoo you can show off. It's access, it's permission. It's the difference between being able to eat and being forced to starve politely in a corner. Because with the mark comes the rule that shrinks your world down to a cage. No one can buy or sell unless they have it. Read that again with your bones, not your brain. Buy or sell. Bread, oil, fish, grain, cloth, sandals, a cup, a needle, a scrap of salt, a handful of lentils. Everything that keeps a person alive in a world without stocked pantries and emergency savings. You can't even get the cheap barley loaf that tastes like spite. You can't even pay the man with the cart for a drink of water without someone checking your hand. And suddenly, you're not watching a far-off horror anymore. You're standing in it. You're in a street that smells like sweat, smoke, and frying oil that should have been thrown out 3 meals ago. The sun beats down. Flies orbit the food stalls like they own the place. A vendor is shouting about olives. Someone else is selling dried figs that look like little wrinkled fists. A butcher's table is slick, and the air around it has that warm iron smell of fresh blood trying to pretend it's just part of life. Your stomach growls. It's not a gentle growl, it's a demand. You step up to a stall where a woman is breaking bread loaves apart with strong hands. The bread is dense, rough, full of grit from the stone mill. It smells faintly sour, but it's food. You reach for it. The woman doesn't even look at your face. Her eyes flick to your right hand. Her mouth tightens. And now you notice the guard standing nearby, pretending not to watch. A man with a short sword and a bored expression, leaning his weight on one leg like this is the easiest job in the world. His eyes scan hands, foreheads. He isn't hunting criminals. He's checking compliance. You open your palm. No mark. The woman's hands stop moving. Behind you, someone sighs loudly, irritated at the delay, like your impending starvation is ruining their afternoon. The guard straightens. Mark, he says. One word, no emotion, like asking for a coin. You swallow. I don't have it. The woman slides the loaf back, away from you, like bread can catch disloyalty. Her voice is low, sharp, panicked. Go. Not, I'm sorry. Not, please be careful. Just go, because she has children and a rent and a life, and she's not about to get her stall shut down over your stubborn loyalty. Your cheeks burn. You step back, and the crowd shifts around you, not kindly. People give you distance the way you give distance to a man coughing. You see them now, the marked ones. Some have the mark on their hand where it's obvious when they pay. Some have it on their forehead like a badge, like they want everyone to know they chose the beast and they're proud of it. They pass through the market like doors open for them without effort. A man buys fish and tosses a coin down, laughing. A mother buys grain and doesn't even have to argue about the price. A soldier takes what he wants and nobody complains because the mark means he belongs to the winning side. And you, unmarked, are a ghost with a heartbeat. You move to another stall, hoping for mercy, hoping for a quiet transaction. A man selling oil watches you approach, sees your hand, and his whole face goes flat. No, that's it, just no. You try the fig seller. He glances at you, then past you, and makes a show of turning his attention elsewhere, like you're not there. Like refusing you is safer if he pretends you don't exist. Your stomach cramps. You taste bile. You can't buy. You can't sell. You can't participate in the basic exchange that keeps cities alive. You can't be normal. You can't even be quietly desperate without it becoming a public statement. And the pressure isn't just hunger. It's social. It's the constant feeling of eyes on you, of being measured, of being labelled. Because the mark isn't only economic, it's worship made practical. It's devotion with receipts. Back in the vision's wide scope, you see it everywhere. A man at a gate checking foreheads like he's counting livestock. A clerk scribbling names, hands, marks, all neat and orderly, because bureaucracy is evil's favourite outfit. Tables, lists, lines, people waiting their turn to prove they belong. You see a family in a narrow room, whispering over a tiny piece of bread, breaking it into 2 small parts. Their hands are shaking as they pass it around like contraband. You see a young man with hollow cheeks staring at his right hand, like it's betrayed him by being clean. You see an older woman tying a cloth around her wrist, trying to hide the absence, like shame can be bandaged. And in the middle of it all, the mark has a name. It's the name of the beast, or the number of its name. The whole system turns people into walking declarations. I belong to the beast. I worship the beast. I'm safe because I surrendered. John's face in the vision looks stricken, like he's being forced to watch the worst kind of prophecy. Not the kind with thunder and distant armies. The kind where the enemy moves into the market. The kind where evil doesn't just threaten you with death. It threatens you with slow life, hunger, cold, isolation, the humiliation of begging, the ache of watching your children's ribs start to show. The beast from the sea stands there like a king. The dragon looms behind it like a shadow that never lifts. The beast from the earth keeps moving through the crowds like a holy man with a knife behind his back, smiling, persuading, performing. You want to scream at the people, to shake them, to tell them the fire from heaven's show isn't worth the price. But your voice won't come. All you can do is watch as the world organizes itself around worship. Your attention catches on one more detail, sharp as a thorn. The second beast doesn't just force the mark with threats. It makes it feel normal, like everyone's doing it, like it's the new coin of the realm, like refusing is childish, like you're the weird one for not wanting to pledge your soul to get a loaf of bread. You see a man in line laughing with his friend, holding out his marked hand like it's a joke. You see a woman rolling her eyes at someone who hesitates, like, just do it, we're hungry. You see the way the crowd's impatience becomes its own pressure, because nothing punishes dissent like an annoyed public. And the whole time, the beast speaks. Blasphemies pour out of it like smoke. It speaks against heaven, against God's name, against God's people. And the world cheers, because the world loves confidence, even when confidence is lying through its teeth. The vision holds you there, trapped in the noise. Worship cries, market cries, the crackle of fire falling, the clink of coins, the sob of someone refusing, the dull thud of a body hitting the ground. You feel sick, you feel furious, you feel small. And John, old, exiled, cramped in a damp cave on a rock in the sea, keeps watching because he has to. This is what he's been shown, not to entertain him, not to give him an exciting story to tell, to warn the unmarked ones who still think the danger is always obvious. Because this danger comes wearing a crown and a miracle. It comes with a healed wound and a public relations team. It comes with a market policy. You blink, and the vision tightens around one last ugly practicality. That number, the number attached to the name. It hangs in the air like a riddle you can't ignore, the kind that makes your mind itch even while your stomach is empty. 666, not shouted like a spell, presented like a key, and you can feel John's whole body tense as if he knows people will need that key soon, because the beast doesn't just want your fear, it wants your worship, counted and recorded, stamped onto your skin, so you can't pretend you belong anywhere else. The storm sky churns above, the Black Sea. The beasts stand, one from water, one from land, and the dragon's shadow stretches over everything. Somewhere in that vast crowd, you see hands reaching for bread, some marked, some empty, and the empty ones, your people, keep their hands close, because even holding them out has started to feel dangerous. And then John gives you a riddle, not a comforting riddle either. Not the kind where the answer is a towel and everyone laughs and eats grapes. This is the kind of riddle you fold into your clothing like contraband, because if the wrong person hears it, you stop having a life. You're back in a cramped room with too many bodies and not enough air. Somebody's oil lamp is doing its best, but it's mostly just making the shadows look guilty. The flame stutters every time someone shifts, and the smell of smoke clings to the ceiling like it's trying to move in permanently. You've got that familiar mix in your nose. Damp wool, unwashed hair, old bread, and the sharp tang of olive oil that's been burned too long. A man near the wall clears his throat. Everyone flinches like he just dropped a plate. He's holding a scroll, and his fingers keep tightening and loosening on it, like the parchment might bite. You can see the tremor in his hands when the lamp catches them. John's words have traveled a long way to get here. They've been copied, carried, hidden under cloaks, tucked into baskets, passed from one nervous believer to another like a spark nobody wants to drop. And now it's in front of you. The reader's voice is low, careful. Not because he's trying to be dramatic, because this is the kind of reading where you don't want the neighbors learning new vocabulary. He gets to the part about the mark, the buying and selling, the name, the number. Your stomach does that unpleasant little fold inward, like it's bracing for a punch. Then the line lands in the room, heavy and plain. This calls for wisdom. The number is 666. It just sits there. No explanation attached. No tidy note. No, by the way, it's definitely that guy. John doesn't do you the courtesy. He hands you a locked box and walks away. For a moment, nobody speaks. You can hear the lamp popping softly. You can hear someone's sandals creak as they flex a cramped foot. You can hear a baby snuffling against a mother's shoulder, the tiny wet sound of a mouth searching for comfort. And you can hear the silence everyone is forcing on themselves because everyone is thinking the same thing. What name? Whose name? A woman finally whispers, 666. She says it like she's tasting something bitter. A man near her mutters, it's a code. Not loudly, not confidently, just like he's trying to convince his own fear. Because you don't survive Rome by writing "the emperor is a monster" in plain ink. You survive Rome by learning how to speak sideways. The meeting breaks up slowly after that, the way people leave a place that feels watched. Hugs are quick, eyes linger too long. Hands squeeze shoulders like still alive, still here. Someone presses a small piece of bread into your palm as you go. It's coarse, gritty, and warm from being hidden under a cloak. It tastes like barley and thumb sweat. You eat it anyway, because you're not made of principles alone. Outside, the night air is colder than you expect. It smells like wet stone, street refuse, and that sour corner where somebody's chamber pot got emptied with zero shame and a lot of confidence. You pull your cloak tighter and keep walking. Not home yet, not with this buzzing in your skull. You end up in a back room that belongs to a believer who makes lamps. The irony is not lost on anyone. The place reeks of oil and hot clay, and there's soot in the cracks of the floor. Even the walls look like they've been working overtime. A small table sits under a shelf of half-finished lamps. On the table, a wax tablet, a stylus, and a little pile of broken pottery shards people use for scratch writing. Basically, the ancient world's most depressing office supplies. 2 men and a woman squeeze in with you. Nobody sits comfortably, because comfort is a rumor, but you huddle close like conspirators, because you are. The woman pulls her head covering tighter and says, "John wouldn't give a number for nothing." One of the men snorts softly. John also lives on a rock in the sea and eats regret fish. It's not disrespect. It's affection mixed with exhaustion. You take the stylus. The wax is already scarred with old notes, names, sums, lists, scraped and rewritten so many times the surface looks tired. You press the point in and start making marks. In your world, letters do double duty. They're sounds and they're numbers. Everyone learns it. Children learn it the way they learn not to touch the cooking fire. Aleph, Beth, Gimel, numbers. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, numbers. It's the ancient version of discovering your alphabet is also a calculator. So if someone gives you a name, you can weigh it in numbers. And if someone gives you a number, you can hunt for a name hiding inside it. That's the trick, not magic, not some spooky priest spell. Just code, in a world where code is the difference between meeting and being fed to dogs. You scratch a few letters, you add, you pause. The room feels too small, like the air itself is leaning in. The man beside you whispers, "Try Caesar." You carve the letters into the wax, counting under your breath. Another man says, "Not just Caesar." "Which Caesar?" And there it is. Because you've had enough Caesars. Everyone has. Caesars are like locusts with better architecture. The woman's voice drops even lower. Nero. The name hits your gut before your mind can do anything with it. Nero. Even far from Rome, the name travels. It travels on soldiers' tongues, on merchants' complaints, on the wide-eyed stories of travelers who saw the capital and came back changed. You try the name. You try it the way you'd touch a bruise, carefully, hoping it doesn't hurt as much as you think it will. You scratch out the letters for Nero Caesar, the way people write it in the East. You count. You add. The stylus makes a faint squeak in the wax, and for some reason, that tiny sound feels obscene. When the sum lands, your hand goes still. The man across from you leans in so close you can smell his breath, sour with old wine and onions. He whispers, "What is it?" You swallow. Your mouth is dry. "It fits," you say. Nobody moves. It's like the whole room just listened for footsteps outside and didn't hear any and still didn't relax. "It fits," the woman repeats, and her voice cracks slightly. Now your mind, traitor that it is, starts supplying images. Not visions like John's. Worse, human images. Because Nero is not a beast from the sea in your imagination. He's a man in a palace, and men are scarier. You've never seen him with your eyes, but you've seen him in the faces of people who fled Rome. You remember a potter who came through your city months ago. He had clay under his nails and fear under his skin. He said the city burned, not a little fire, not, "We lost a block." He said the night turned orange, and the smoke turned the sun into a sickly coin. He said people ran with their hair on fire, screaming, clutching children, tripping over each other in streets so packed the crowd moved like one panicked animal. He said the smell was unforgettable. Burnt wood, burnt cloth, burnt food, burnt flesh. He said you could taste the ash in your teeth for days. And when the fire finally died down and the ruins still smoked, people started looking for someone to blame. Rome always blamed somebody. Nero, he said, didn't look guilty. Nero looked theatrical. Nero looked like a man who discovered a new instrument and couldn't wait to hear it played again. So he gave Rome a villain. Not himself. You. The people of Jesus. The potter's hands shook as he told it. He said the arrests started quietly, then grew teeth. He said they dragged believers out of homes. They pulled them from alleys. They took them from meetings like the one you just left. Only in Rome there are more soldiers and fewer places to hide. He said some were sewn into animal skins. Not metaphor, actual skins. Wet, heavy, stinking hides strapped over human bodies. Then dogs were loosed. The dogs did what hungry dogs do. He said others were nailed up or tied to poles, coated with pitch. Thick, sticky, tarry pitch that smells like hell's own candle shop. And then, this is the part his voice turned flat, like his soul stepped away for a moment. Then they lit them. Human torches, in Nero's gardens, to keep a party going, to make the night bright enough for laughter and music and wine and whatever else you do when you've decided your heart is a stone. You can see it too, because your brain is cruelly good at pictures. A garden with trimmed hedges and marble statues. Perfume in the air trying to fight the smell of burning. Guests reclining on couches, tossing grapes into their mouths. Someone playing a lute. Someone laughing too loudly. And along the paths, upright shapes burning, crackling, sputtering, the flames licking upward while their bodies do what bodies do when you set them on fire. You clench your jaw so hard your teeth ache. In the back room, the lamp maker whispers, "That's a beast." Nobody argues, because what else do you call that? You look back down at the wax tablet, 666, a number that can point to a man who wore power like perfume and used people like kindling. A number that lets you say his name without saying it, because even now, even here, you don't love the idea of the wrong ears hearing you. A knock on the wrong door. A neighbor who's friendly until he's paid not to be. A soldier who decides your face looks suspicious. So you keep the code. You keep the number. The man across from you rubs his forehead, and his fingers leave a smear of soot on his skin. He whispers, "So it's Nero." The woman doesn't answer right away. Her eyes are fixed on the tablet like it might move. Finally she says, "Or it's the kind of man Nero is." That hangs there, because even if Nero is the sum, Nero is also a type. You've seen enough of Rome to know they don't run out of men who crave worship. They just rotate them like seasons. The lamp maker takes the stylus from you and scrapes the wax smooth with the flat end. The number disappears under the smear, but the idea doesn't. He says, "Try other names." He doesn't mean it like a game. He means it like a survival drill. So you do. You try a few powerful names, the kind people whisper with mixed fear and resentment. Some don't fit. Some almost fit, like a sandal that gives you blisters, but you keep wearing because it's all you have. The code is slippery like that. It can point and it can tease. And that's the point. If John put a single clear name on the page, Rome could seize the scroll and hang every reader. A number is safer. A number is a locked door. Only people who already know the danger can find the key. But the key doesn't always turn the same way for everyone. In another city, you hear believers whisper a slightly different number. Not 666, 616. It's said quickly, like someone wants it out of their mouth. You blink the first time you hear it, because your spine recognizes bad news, even when it's wearing new clothing. A traveler tells you this while you're standing near a fish stall, pretending to inspect a pile of sardines that smell like low tide and disappointment. He says, "Some write it different." You say, "Different how?" He glances around before he answers, because everyone glances around now. 616. he murmurs. Same game, same target. And suddenly you understand, because names shift depending on language, depending on spelling, depending on whether you write it the Roman way or the Eastern way. The number can flex. The beast can wear different masks, but it's still the same face underneath. A man who wants what belongs to God. A man who wants worship with paperwork. Later that week, you pass a public notice board. It's plastered with announcements, taxes, decrees, and the usual Roman hobby of telling everyone what to do. The ink is thick and black, the letters sharp. A little crowd stands there reading, lips moving, frowning. You can smell them before you reach them. Sweat, garlic, old wool, and that sour note of too much wine the night before. A soldier stands nearby, leaning on his spear, watching the crowd the way a cat watches mice. Bored, but pleased to be needed. You don't stop, you don't stare. You just let your eyes flick across the board. There's a name on one of the notices, a title, Divine, Lord, Savior. Words that make your stomach tighten, because you know where those words belong. Not on a Roman notice board, not above a tax policy, not next to a reminder about grain distribution, but there they are. And that's when the number starts feeling less like a puzzle and more like a diagnosis, because 666 isn't only a way to identify one man. It's a way to describe a whole posture of the human soul. The posture that stands on tiptoe, puts on a crown, and says, look at me, worship me, I am enough. In your bones you already know what 7 means. 7 is everywhere, 7 days, 7 lamps, sevenfold completeness. It's the number that feels finished, solid, whole. 6 is almost there, almost. It's a table with one leg too short. It's bread that looks done on the outside and is still raw in the middle. It's a promise that sounds good until you try living inside it. Now take that almost number and stack it. 6, 6, 6. Humanity insisting 3 times over that it can be its own God. Human power, human glory, human control, a trinity of self. And it still falls short. It still can't reach 7. It can get loud. It can get violent. It can get organized. It can build statues that talk and markets that punish and systems that starve you politely. But it can't become God. All it can do is imitate, like a cheap copy that looks convincing until you touch it and feel the flimsy edges. You see it in the way the beast mimics a throne, a kind of resurrection with that healed wound, a prophet performing signs, a mark that looks like belonging. It's all imitation, like someone wearing a soldier's armor to a parade, hoping nobody notices they've never been in a real fight. And for a while, people don't notice. People love a costume if it comes with dinner. You're walking through the market again when the meaning sinks deeper. The same vendor who rejected you earlier, bread woman with the strong hands, has a new stamp on her table, a little wooden thing with ink. She presses it onto a scrap of wax for a customer, marking a purchase, a receipt. You watch the customer's hand. There's the mark. He holds it out without shame, casual as a man showing a coin. The woman doesn't smile. She doesn't frown. She just does the transaction like it's weather. And that's the part that makes your throat go tight, because you can fight monsters. You can't fight normal. Normal is the real trap. Normal is the crowd sighing behind you when you don't comply. Normal is a friend saying, just do it, please, my children are hungry. Normal is the way fear teaches people to stop asking questions and start asking where the line is. You buy nothing, you sell nothing. You drift through the noise like a person-shaped absence. You pass a butcher's stall where flies are having a festival on a slab of meat. You pass baskets of figs splitting open with sticky sweetness. You pass a bucket of fish heads staring upward, glassy-eyed, like they've seen everything. Your stomach twists again, because hunger is a persuasive preacher. And that's when you understand why John didn't give you a sword. He gave you a number, a way to see. Because when the world starts applauding a beast, you need something small and sharp inside your mind that whispers, not 7, not whole, not true, just loud, just human, just 6, wearing a crown and demanding songs. That night, you meet again in a different house. Not the same room as before. You never use the same room too often. You learn to vary your habits the way other people vary their meals. Someone has spread a rough cloth on the floor and set a cup of wine and a small plate of bread on it. The bread is torn into pieces, uneven and stingy. It smells like yeast and smoke. A young man sits with his back against the wall, knees drawn up. He keeps staring at his right hand, flexing it, unflexing it, like he's waiting for it to betray him. You sit near him, close enough to share warmth without making a show of it. He whispers, "They're saying it's Nero." You whisper back, "They're saying it fits." He lets out a breath that shakes. "My uncle says Nero is dead." You nod slowly. Rumors say that too. Rumors also say he'll return. Rumors say he didn't really die, that he fled, that he's hiding, that he's coming back with armies and vengeance. Rumors spread the way mold spreads, quietly in the dark, feeding on fear. The young man's eyes flick to yours. "If he's dead," he whispers, "why are we still afraid?" Because the number isn't only a name, it's a warning label. Because Nero can die, and the beast can keep breathing through someone else's mouth. Because what Nero did in the gardens was not a one-time performance. It was a demonstration of what happens when a man is treated like a god and decides to act like it. You don't say all that. You just reach out and tap the wax tablet on the floor beside you, where someone has scratched the number again. 6, 6, 6. The young man swallows. "I hate that it's a puzzle," he whispers. You almost laugh, but it comes out more like air through your nose. "Yeah," you whisper back. "A puzzle you can get killed for solving." He looks at the bread on the cloth. So little, so ordinary, so fragile. Then he says, "So what do we do with it?" The room is quiet enough that you can hear a rat scratching somewhere behind the wall. You can hear the low, wet cough of someone sick in the next room, trying to keep it down. You can hear the lamp's wick sizzling. An older woman, hair grey, hands scarred from work, speaks softly from the shadows. "We do what we've been doing," she says. Her voice has that tired strength people get when they've already survived too much. "We remember who is 7. Nobody corrects her. Nobody needs to. You break the bread. It tears with a dry crackle, crumbs falling onto the cloth. You pass pieces hand to hand. No mark required, no receipt, no guard. Just trembling fingers and quiet mouths chewing slowly, making the food last because tomorrow is a question mark. The wine comes around in a small cup. It tastes sharp and thin, watered down because everything is watered down, even joy. Still, it's enough to warm your throat. The number sits in your mind while you drink. 666. A riddle that points to a man, and beyond the man to the shape of the lie. The lie that says power deserves worship. The lie that says survival is worth your soul. The lie that says God is optional as long as the market is open. You leave late. The streets are darker now, the kind of dark that makes you step carefully because the gutters hide surprises. The stones are slick in places with yesterday's spilled wine and last week's rain and whatever else a city decides to leak. You pass a doorway where a drunk man is slumped, mouth open, snoring like a saw. You pass a shrine with a little lamp burning, offering light to a carved face that never answers. You keep your head down. You keep moving, but the number moves with you. Not like a haunting, like a tool. A small, hard stone in your pocket you can touch when the world starts insisting that the beast is normal. When you hear someone praising the emperor with too much enthusiasm. When you see a neighbor glance at your hand. When a merchant's smile goes stiff because you won't do the little act of worship that makes commerce safe. 666. Not God, not whole, not the end. Just humanity at its loudest, trying to climb into the heavens with dirty feet and a self-important grin. And somewhere in the city, behind a wall you can't see through, a bureaucrat dips a pen into ink. He writes names, he checks marks, he files loyalties, he makes worship into administration. And you realize, with a slow chill, that the beast doesn't always need a throne. Sometimes it's a desk, sometimes it's a stamp, sometimes it's a neighbor who's scared and tired and ready to trade truth for bread. You pull your cloak tighter and walk on. The night air smells like smoke and old fish, and the faint sweetness of crushed fruit rotting in the gutter. Above you, the sky is black and indifferent. The riddle keeps its place in your mind, sharp and quiet, because the terrifying part isn't that a beast has a number. The terrifying part is how easily the world learns to count along with it. You're late, someone mutters as you slip through the door. Not loud, not angry, just factual, like we all agreed to risk arrest at the same time, and you somehow missed the memo. You duck your head and squeeze past a pottery shelf that wobbles like it's considering betrayal. The room is warmer than outside, but it's the gross kind of warm. Too many bodies, too much breath, and a stew of smells that could strip paint. Sour wool, lamp smoke, and the faint, stubborn reek of yesterday's fish. A little boy is asleep on a folded cloak in the corner. His mouth is open, and he's drooling like peace is the easiest thing in the world. The rest of you look like you're borrowing calm on credit. Someone set out a bowl of olives. They're wrinkled and tired, like they've been through something. You take one anyway, because your stomach doesn't care about spiritual warfare. It cares about salt. The older woman, grey hair, scarred hands, the kind of eyes that have seen too much and survived anyway, leans toward you. "Did you hear?" she whispers. "They found another letter." Your spine tightens. "From John," you whisper back. She nods once. The nod is small, but it lands heavy. Because John's not just the man with the visions and the beasts and the number that makes your mouth go dry. John is also still writing. And that feels almost rude, honestly. Like, "Sir, we are barely coping with the last scroll." A man near the lamp clears his throat. Same flinch in the room as always. Nobody trusts a sudden sound anymore. He's holding a smaller scroll this time, less dramatic, less apocalyptic, more like the ancient equivalent of a letter you'd keep tucked in your clothes until it's soft at the edges. He looks around at everyone. His eyes pause on the empty places. There are always empty places now. A spot by the wall where a woman used to sit with her baby. A place near the oil lamp where a young man always leaned forward too far, eager, hungry for every word. Those bodies aren't here, not sick, not traveling, just gone. The reader wets his lips. His mouth shines in the lamplight for a moment, and you hate that you notice. Then he begins. His voice is careful, like he's carrying something hot. "Little children," he reads, and the words hit you strangely. Not insulting, not condescending, just intimate, like someone older, tired, and still stubbornly loving you. It is the last hour. A quiet sound runs through the room, not a gasp, more like a collective swallow, because you've heard that kind of sentence before from preachers who want to sell panic like it's bread. But this doesn't feel like that. This feels like a man who's watched friends die and isn't interested in theatre. He keeps reading. You hear the phrase you weren't expecting. Not the Antichrist, not one. Plural. Many Antichrists have come. Your eyes flick, involuntarily, to the door, as if you'll see them standing there, lined up, wearing matching cloaks like a travelling troupe. But the doorway is just a doorway. The real discomfort crawls in another way, because many means you don't get to wait for a single obvious villain. You don't get a helpful horned monster rising out of the sea on a schedule. You get people. The reader's voice doesn't speed up. He lets it sit. This is how we know it is the last hour. Your mind tries to reach for the safe version of danger. The safe version is a future tyrant with a throne and a mark and a public policy. The safe version is something you can point at and say, there, that's the problem. But John's words feel like someone turning your face toward your own living room, toward your own meetings, toward your own circle of friends, because the next line comes like a slap. They went out from us, not they attacked us, not they invaded, not they came from the outside with swords. They left. They were in the room with you. They shared bread. They sang the songs. They knew the names. They knew where people hid. And now they're not here. You look again at the empty places. The woman with the baby. The eager young man. You remember how the eager one used to argue softly after meetings. Not angry, just insistent. He'd say, God wouldn't really, and stop, like he was being polite. He'd say, surely it's not, and smile, like doubt was just sophistication. He'd laugh a little too easily at the parts about blood and suffering, like it embarrassed him. The reader continues. They were not of us. That lands with a kind of cold mercy, because it explains something you've been trying not to name. The way someone can sit among you and still not belong to what you believe. The way a person can learn your vocabulary without loving your Lord. The way someone can say peace while sharpening a blade. The letter keeps moving. Now John is talking about denial, about refusing, about twisting a truth until it breaks, and your stomach tightens, because this is not abstract. You've heard the whispers. You've heard the new teaching that's been traveling like smoke through the little communities. Smooth, clever smoke. It goes like this. Jesus didn't really come in flesh. Not like real flesh. Not like the kind that sweats and bleeds and gets tired and needs to use a latrine. No. That would be too messy, too common, too humiliating for someone holy. They say he only seemed human, a divine appearance, a spiritual projection, like a god trying on a body the way a rich man tries on a cheap cloak, wrinkling his nose the whole time. You hate it immediately, not because you're brilliant, because you've watched enough human suffering to know that a pretend savior is useless. A pretend savior can't carry anything. Not grief, not hunger, not fear, not the weight of living under Rome's boot. The reader gets to the sharp edge. Who is the liar? Reads, but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ. The word liar is not delicate. It doesn't do diplomacy. It doesn't soften the blow. It's not misguided. It's not confused. It's liar. And suddenly you remember the eager young man again. His smile, his gentle voice, the way he'd talk as if he was helping you upgrade your faith, as if the old message was too primitive, too bloody, too embodied. You shift on the floor, and your knee bumps someone else's. No one complains. Everyone is packed in like sardines, and someone, somewhere, smells like garlic and regret. The reader keeps going. He speaks about confession, about acknowledging the sun, about not denying. Your mind latches onto the word acknowledge the way a drowning person grabs a plank, because it's concrete. It's not a puzzle number. It's not a beast with 7 heads. It's a line you can draw in a room full of half-truths. You can tell when someone's mouth won't say it. You can hear the way they slide around it, like it's a puddle of something unsanitary. The letter says you have an anointing, that you know, that you don't need a new secret teaching. And you almost laugh at that. Almost. Because everyone around you is tired, poor, hunted, and more than a little underfed. You don't feel anointed. You feel greasy. You feel like your cloak needs to be boiled. But the words do something anyway. They settle you. They make you feel less stupid for not chasing every clever new idea like it's a shiny coin. A baby stirs somewhere behind you. A mother hushes him quickly, pressing his face to her shoulder. His little noises are wet and insistent, like he's offended by the concept of silence. The reader reaches the part about remaining, about abiding, about staying. It sounds simple until you remember how hard staying is. Staying when the market punishes you. Staying when friends leave. Staying when the empire's gods are loud and public and come with free bread sometimes. Staying when a smooth teacher offers you an easier version of faith. A version without scandal, without flesh, without a cross, without the ugly, humiliating idea that God would actually enter the mess with you. The letter ends, and nobody speaks right away. The oil lamp pops. A little smear of smoke crawls up the wall like it's trying to escape. You realize your jaw hurts from clenching. A man near the back finally whispers, "So, it's already here." He doesn't say it like a future monster. He says it like mildew, like rot in the rafters, like something that's been creeping through the house while everyone slept. The older woman nods, slow and grim. "In our room," she whispers. "In our mouths. In our friends." That's when the worst thought arrives. Not like a trumpet blast, like a drip. If Antichrist is already here, then you don't just watch the horizon. You watch the table. You watch the teaching. You watch the tone. You watch the way someone talks about Jesus when they think nobody will challenge them. You feel suddenly tired in your bones, the way you feel when you realize the enemy isn't a distant army. It's a cold you can catch. The meeting breaks in careful pieces. No dramatic goodbye. Just people shifting, cloaks adjusted, heads lowered. Hands squeeze hands. A few murmured blessings. Someone presses another olive into your palm like it's a weapon. Outside, the street air hits you sharp and wet. The stones are slick, and your sandal slides on something you really don't want to identify. Probably fruit, maybe not. A cat darts into an alley, skinny as a bad idea. You walk fast, keeping to shadows, and you can't stop thinking about the empty places in the room, about people who went out, people who knew the songs and left anyway. It makes you feel exposed, because if they can leave, anyone can. If they can twist the message, anyone can. The next day, you find yourself in the market, because faith doesn't cancel errands. You need oil. You need something that might pass for food. You need to keep living, which is rude of life, honestly. The market is loud and damp. Merchants shout like volume is holiness. A donkey brays, and it sounds personally offended by existence. The fish stall is doing what fish stalls do, making the entire street smell like the sea had a tantrum. You're trying to inspect a jar of oil without looking suspicious. You also don't want to pay too much, because you're not made of money. That's when you hear a familiar voice. Warm, smooth, the eager young man, not eager anymore. Now he's confident. He's standing near a cloth seller, talking to a small knot of people like he's hosting a little lecture. His hands move gently, persuasive. He looks clean, cleaner than you remember, like he's been doing well. You drift closer without meaning to. His words float over the noise. The divine doesn't suffer, he's saying, and you can practically hear him capitalizing divine in his head. God is spirit, pure, untouched, unstained. A woman listening nods, lips parted. Someone else murmurs agreement. It's comforting, in a way. It tells you God stays clean. It tells you the mess is yours alone. You hate that it sounds nice. You edge closer, and he spots you. His smile widens like he's been waiting. There you are, he says, as if you're late to a dinner party. We missed you. The words "we missed you" make your skin crawl, because it's the voice of someone selling something. Someone who wants you back, not because they love you, because you're a body that adds weight to their side. You force a small nod. I heard you left, you say. He spreads his hands, palms up. We had to, he says softly, like he's the wounded one. There's so much fear in those little rooms, so much blood. He says blood, like it's a crude joke, like it's the embarrassing part you're supposed to grow out of. Then he leans in a fraction. You don't really believe God came in. This, he says, and his eyes flick over your face, your cloak, your hands, your human hands, your calluses, your cracked nails, your ordinary skin. He makes this sound like a kitchen rag, something you throw away. You feel heat rise in your chest, not because you're brave, because you're offended, because you suddenly see what John was talking about, not on a scroll, but standing 3 feet away, smiling at you. A denial that wears friendliness like perfume. You want to say 100 things. You want to tell him about the potter from Rome, about human torches, about mothers who watched sons die and still said Jesus' name with their last breath. You want to tell him that a God who won't touch flesh can't save anyone trapped in it, but the market is public, too public. A soldier passes behind you, bored eyes scanning faces. You swallow the speech back down and go smaller. You go sharper, so you won't say it, you murmur. He tilts his head. Say what? You hold his gaze. Jesus the Messiah, you say, came in the flesh. The sentence is simple. It feels like a stone in your mouth, heavy, real. He doesn't flinch, not outwardly, but his smile tightens, just a hair. The mask slips a fraction, and you see irritation underneath, quick and hot. He laughs lightly, too lightly. Words, he says. You're trapped in words. And there it is, not a beast roaring. A man dismissing the truth as childish. A man making faith sound like a misunderstanding you could fix if you were smarter. The little group around him shifts. One person looks uncertain. Another looks annoyed at you because you're ruining the pleasant feeling they were having. You back away because you're not here to start a riot between the olive seller and the cloth seller. You're here to buy oil and not get arrested, but you walk off with your skin prickling because it wasn't dramatic. It was casual. It was marketplace conversation. It was friendly heresy next to discounted linen. And now John's letter feels less like a warning about some far-off crisis. It feels like a description of Tuesday. That night, you meet again, this time in a different house. The courtyard smells like wet clay and old smoke. Someone's cooking lentils, and it's doing that cruel thing where it smells good, but you know the bowl will be small. You sit with your back against a wall that's sweating moisture. The plaster is cool through your cloak. A man beside you scratches his beard and whispers, I saw him. You don't ask who, you both know. He's teaching openly now, the man says, voice tight, like he's proud. A woman across from you hisses, he used to pray with us. The sentence cracks at the end, not loudly, but you hear the heartbreak. Because betrayal isn't only someone selling you to Rome. Sometimes it's someone taking your faith and sanding off everything that cost you. Someone making it respectable, safe, popular. A door creaks. Everyone goes still. It's just a child stepping wrong on a plank, but your heart doesn't care. Your heart slams anyway. The older woman motions, and the reader lifts another portion of the scroll. His voice comes again, steady. Now John is talking about spirits, not ghosts, not scary bedtime stories. Spirits the way you've started to understand them. The breath behind a teaching, the motive behind a voice, the force that pushes a person's words a certain direction. Beloved, he reads, do not believe every spirit. A few people let out silent, bitter laughs at that. Because wouldn't it be nice if that was obvious? Wouldn't it be nice if lies came with a smell, like warning, this teaching contains rot? But lies smell like normal breath. They smell like a friend's mouth. They smell like wine and onions and confidence. The reader continues. Test the spirits. Test, like you're at the market, checking a fish to see if it's fresh. Except the fishmonger is offended and the fish is trying to steal your soul. You picture it and almost smile. Almost. Because test means you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to weigh a teaching. You're allowed to push back. You're allowed to not be dazzled by someone's charisma. John gives the test. Not complicated, not secret, not a number, a confession. A simple, stubborn statement about Jesus, that he came in the flesh, that he's not a clean idea floating above your suffering. He entered the suffering. He took on the sweat and the hunger and the pain and the humiliation. He got splinters. He bled. He died. And if someone can't stand that, if they have to bleach it into something more spiritual, then whatever is driving them is not from God. The room is very quiet. A rat scratches again behind the wall, persistent, like it pays rent. You find yourself thinking about the eager young man in the market, his clean hands, his smooth words, his little recoil at the thought of God being dirty like the rest of you. You realize, with a slow, unpleasant clarity, that denial isn't always screamed. Sometimes it's refined. Sometimes it's wrapped in wisdom. Sometimes it's the desire to have God without the cross. A woman near the lamp whispers, he said God wouldn't suffer. The older woman's voice is low. Then he doesn't know God, she says. No cruelty in it, just a sad certainty. The reader moves on. Now John is talking about love, not the soft, sentimental kind. Not the I like you when you agree with me kind. The kind that shows up when it costs you. The kind that stays in the room when people leave. He says love is how you can tell where someone is truly from. And you feel the sting of that. Because the ones who left didn't just change their words. They changed their posture. They became superior. They became impatient with the poor and the scared. They mocked the simple confession that used to hold you together. They weren't just wrong, they were cold. The letter says, fear has torment. You don't need that explained. You've tasted fear so often, it's basically part of your diet. Fear is waking at a sound. Fear is hiding bread under your cloak. Fear is choosing which neighbor you trust with your real name. Fear is hearing soldiers laugh and feeling your stomach drop. John doesn't pretend fear isn't there, but he refuses to let fear be your master. He keeps pulling you back to what's true, to what's embodied, to what's confessed plainly, to what's lived in love. someone behind you shifts and whispers, "So it's not only a beast in the future." You stare at the lamp flame, watching it tremble. "No," you whisper back. "It's a voice now." A voice that tells you Jesus is less than he is. A voice that tells you God stayed distant. A voice that tells you you can have faith without obedience, belief without love, religion without the messy, humiliating work of actually staying faithful. A voice that tells you comfort is the goal. A voice that always tries to separate Jesus from flesh. Because flesh is where you suffer. Flesh is where you're tempted to compromise. Flesh is where Rome can touch you. Flesh is where you get hungry. Flesh is where you die. If Jesus didn't come there, then you're alone there. And that is the lie underneath the lie. The meeting ends late. People leave in 2s and 3s, spaced out like you're pretending you don't know each other. Your feet carry you through narrow streets that smell like damp stone and leftover wine. A dog noses at a pile of garbage, then looks up at you like you're the one being weird. You pass a shrine with a little statue and a little lamp. Someone has left a fresh offering, bread, surprisingly white. You look away, not because bread is evil, because you know what the offering means. Allegiance comes with snacks. It always has. You keep walking, and you realize you're repeating the confession in your mind, not like a spell, but like a handhold. Jesus came in the flesh, not a costume, not a phantom, not a clean idea. Flesh, real, touchable, killable. And somehow, that's what makes it hope instead of philosophy. You reach your door. The wood is swollen from damp, and it sticks a little when you push. Inside, the air is stale. Your sleeping mat is a thin pad that smells like dust and old sweat. You sit anyway, because you're tired in the deep places. You think of the empty spots in the meeting. You think of the market teacher and his polite denial. You think of John on his island rock, writing not only about beasts rising from the sea, but about something slipperier, something that can walk into your gathering and smile, something that can call you beloved and then cut Jesus down into something safer. You don't feel triumphant. You feel warned and strangely steadied, because the warning came with a test you can actually use, not a code, not a riddle, a confession, a love that shows itself in staying. And in the quiet, with the city's distant noise seeping through the walls, you understand the unsettling gift John handed you. Not just the promise that evil will someday wear a crown and demand worship, but the knowledge that deception can wear a friend's face. It can sit where you used to sit. It can speak your language. And it can be resisted, not with cleverness, but with a stubborn, ordinary faith that won't let go of the real Jesus. Jesus with skin and blood and dust on his feet, while the night keeps insisting on cleaner lies. A few days pass, and your life stubbornly stays ordinary. You still wake up with sleep stuck in your eyes and grit in your teeth. You still step over the same cracked stones, dodge the same puddles, and smell the same unbeatable trio of smoke, sweat, and yesterday's fish. Rome still does what Rome does. Your worries still show up on time, like they've got a schedule. And in the middle of all that normal, your mind keeps replaying everything you've just walked through. So after all of that, the nightmares, the beasts, the numbers, the marks, what are you supposed to do with it when you wake up tomorrow and the street still smells like smoke? Because it didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like a warning you could taste in the back of your throat. It wasn't handed down like a campfire tale to keep you awake and jumpy. Nobody risked their neck copying these words by lamplight, just so you could live in permanent paranoia, staring at every charismatic stranger like they're about to sprout horns. It steadies you in a way you can actually feel, not by making the world less dark, by making the dark less confusing. Daniel was the first one to grab you by the collar and show you the shape of the threat. Not a cute little metaphor, a real, ugly thing with teeth. A ruler that starts as small, starts as reasonable, starts as, oh, he's just a clever politician. And then you blink, and he's got eyes like a man and a mouth that won't stop talking. That mouth is the detail that sticks. Not claws, not fire, not even the iron teeth. The talking. Because the danger isn't only violence. It's arrogance with a microphone. It's confidence that fills a room and makes you feel small. It's pompous words that turn cruelty into policy and blasphemy into a slogan people chant in the street. Daniel watched that little horn make war on the saints and actually win for a while. That's the part nobody wants to print on a comfort pillow. Not God protected everyone and no one got hurt. Not the faithful were immediately delivered with dramatic music. Daniel watched the faithful get crushed under the gears of power, and he didn't get to look away. And that alone is a kind of mercy. Because when you're living through the part where evil seems to be winning, it feels exactly like this. Hands shaking, stomach turning. The room still smelling like smoke while the loud mouth keeps talking. Then you got shoved forward in time to Jerusalem, and Antiochus showed you the nightmare with shoes on. Not some shadowy end times rumor, not a vague threat floating in the future. A real man walked into a real temple and did something so foul it makes your skin crawl even now. You can almost smell it again, can't you? Hot blood, burnt fat, incense trying desperately to cover it, and the sour panic sweat of people who know they're watching their world get desecrated. A pig on the altar like it's a joke. A statue shoved where it doesn't belong. Holy space treated like a conquered bathroom. Antiochus was the preview nobody asked for. He proved something important. This kind of evil isn't imaginary. It doesn't stay in dreams. It walks into public places. It makes itself official. It demands you pretend you don't see what's happening. And then, just when you want to file that under awful, but at least it's over, you hear Jesus talk about it like it's not finished. Like that kind of desecration has a habit of coming back with a new face and the same spirit. So now you're not dealing with a single villain. You're dealing with a recurring infection. Same fever, different century. Then Paul shows up, and he doesn't hand you a monster. He hands you a warning that feels like a letter read in a cramped room where everyone's breath is too loud. He tells you about the man of lawlessness, yes, the one who exalts himself, the one who sits in God's temple and declares himself God. But before you even get to that, Paul makes you face the part that's honestly more uncomfortable, the falling away, not the invasion from outside, not the obvious enemy at the gate with a spear, the drift, the unraveling, the slow trade of conviction for convenience. That's why that little house church in Thessalonica was panicking. Because persecution is terrifying, but confusion is worse. Confusion makes you doubt the ground under your feet. Confusion makes you grab at any voice that sounds confident, even if it's wrong. Paul's words land like a steady hand on your shoulder. Not because he promises an easy timeline. He doesn't. He tells you there's a restrainer, there's a holding back, there's a moment when the mask comes off. In other words, evil has a leash. It yanks and bites and drags people into the mud, but it's not ultimate. It's not sovereign. It does not get infinite room. And then you end up on Patmos with John, and he does what John does. He takes everything you thought you understood about fear and turns it into a full body experience. Sea spray in your face, cave damp in your clothes, hunger sitting in your gut like a stone. And then, Visions that feel too big for the human brain to hold. A beast rises from the sea, and it's not subtle. 7 heads, 10 horns, crowns, blasphemous names, the whole nightmare parade. It's power that doesn't even pretend to be humble anymore. Its empire turned into a creature, and everybody's acting like it's normal. That's what makes it so horrifying. People worship it. People admire it. People are impressed by it. People line up and say, "Who is like the beast?" Like they're reviewing a gladiator match. And then the second beast shows up, not with brute force, but with persuasion. A religious vibe, a miracle worker vibe, a trust me, I'm spiritual vibe. Fire from heaven, signs, wonders, a whole production. The ancient equivalent of a viral campaign. Except the stakes are your soul and the price is your name. And that's where John gets painfully practical. You can't buy or sell without the mark. Not because God wants you obsessing over barcodes and stamps, because he wants you to feel the pressure in your body. The pressure of standing at a stall with bread in front of you, your stomach growling, your kids at home, and a simple requirement between you and survival. Pledge allegiance. Say the words. Do the gesture. Just a pinch of incense. Just a mark. Just a little compromise. It's the kind of evil that doesn't only threaten you with death, it tempts you with convenience. Then came the number, 666, the one everybody loves to turn into a party trick. And you walked through what it felt like in the first century, when numbers weren't just math, they were names hiding in plain sight, when wisdom meant you had to be careful, because carelessness could get you killed. Nero wasn't a cartoon. He was the kind of ruler who could host a garden party lit by burning human beings and still have people applaud his taste. He was charmed with cruelty underneath, like perfume sprayed over rot. So 666 hits like this. Humanity, humanity, humanity. Not divinity, not completion, not the Holy Seven. Just man stacked on man stacked on man, trying to become God by sheer force of ego. It's a number that smells like sweat, like a body trying to be more than a body, without submitting to the one who actually is more. It's the stench of pride dressed in ceremony. And then John, because he's not done apparently, leans in closer than any of them. He stops talking only about a beast out there. He talks about antichrists in the plural, in the room, at the table, in the community, in the mouth of someone who used to pray next to you. He tells you the spirit of Antichrist is already at work, not as a red-faced demon with dramatic music behind him, as a teaching, a tone, a denial that can wear a friendly smile and offer you a cleaner version of faith, the kind that says God wouldn't really suffer, the kind that says Jesus didn't really come in flesh, the kind that tries to scrub the scandal out of the gospel until it's just a respectable idea you can nod at in public. And suddenly, you understand why you needed to hear all of it. Not so you could spend your life chasing shadows. Not so you could turn every rumor into a countdown. Not so you could flinch at every confident smile. So you could stay steady. So you could keep your hands on what's true when the pressure starts offering you bread with strings. All of this was handed to you, so you'd recognize the type of evil when it showed up. Because the type is consistent. It exalts itself. It demands worship, whether it's literal incense or the quieter worship of obedience and fear. It blasphemes, not always with profanity, but by replacing God with something else. Sometimes it replaces God with a ruler. Sometimes it replaces God with an empire. Sometimes it replaces God with a better idea of God that never gets its hands dirty. It promises safety, belonging, prosperity, normal life. It offers bread with strings tied to it. And it always tries to separate you from the real Jesus, from the Jesus who came in the flesh. Because if Jesus is only a glowing concept, he can't meet you in a prison cell. He can't meet you in grief. He can't meet you in the market when you're choosing between hunger and compromise. A pretend savior can't carry real suffering. A distant God can't be your refuge when Rome is banging on the door. So that confession John gave you, simple, stubborn, almost embarrassingly plain, isn't small at all. It's an anchor. Jesus the Messiah came in the flesh, meaning God didn't stand far away, offended by human mess. He stepped into it, into sweat and splinters and blood and exhaustion, into betrayal and injustice and the humiliating weakness of a body. That's why Antichrist hates it, because if God truly entered the mess, then the mess doesn't belong to evil anymore. It doesn't belong to the beast. It doesn't belong to the liar with the smooth voice. It belongs to God. Now, after all that, you also get the ending. And you need the ending, because the middle part is loud. Daniel's little horn doesn't get to talk forever. He doesn't get to keep winning and winning and winning like some cosmic bully who never meets consequences. The boasting mouth shuts. The horn is destroyed. The beast is judged. Paul's man of lawlessness doesn't get to sit there forever either, acting like he's untouchable. He's revealed, yes. He terrifies, yes. He pretends to be God, yes. But his end is almost insultingly simple. He's slain by the breath of the Lord's mouth, not by a complicated battle strategy, not by a desperate scramble where heaven barely squeaks out a win, by a breath, like someone blowing out a lamp. John's beast, for all its crowns and its hype and its worship and its marks and its propaganda, doesn't get the last word either. It ends in the lake of fire. Final, finished, thrown down like refuse. Evil doesn't get a redemption arc. It gets an expiration date. So what were you meant to take away from all of this, after you smelled the smoke and heard the boasts and felt the pressure of the mark? You were meant to be watchful, not terrified. Watchful means you don't get drunk on charisma. You don't confuse confidence for truth. You don't assume the loudest voice is the right one. You test what you're hearing, because your soul is not a public marketplace where anyone can set up a stall. Watchful means you notice when Jesus is being reduced, when he's turned into a mascot for power, or a spiritual concept that never challenges anyone, or a teacher who conveniently never demands a cross, when the flesh is denied, when suffering is mocked, when obedience is treated like embarrassment. Watchful means you pay attention to fruit, not in a performative way, in the way a tired person pays attention to what actually keeps them alive. Does this teaching produce love, endurance, humility, courage, and a stubborn kind of faithfulness? Or does it produce superiority, coldness, cruelty, and the kind of freedom that somehow always ends with someone else getting hurt? And you were meant to remember deep in your bones that the people who first carried these stories were not living in comfort. They were not writing from a quiet study with soft hands and a full stomach. They were writing while empire pressed on their throats. They were writing while friends disappeared. They were writing while false teachers smiled and offered a nicer, cleaner gospel that didn't cost so much. They held onto these visions because they needed them. They needed to know they weren't crazy for feeling hunted. They needed to know evil had a face, even when it wore makeup. They needed to know compromise would always be offered as reasonable. They needed to know that faithful suffering wasn't meaningless. And they needed to know the ending, that the beasts fall, that the mouth stops boasting, that the mark doesn't win, that the church doesn't survive by being clever, but by clinging to the real Christ, flesh and blood, crucified and risen, present in the mess. So when the world feels like it's sprouting extra horns, when voices get smoother and demands get sharper, You don't have to invent new fear. You already know the vibe. You already know what it sounds like when evil starts marketing itself as salvation. You already know what it looks like when power asks for worship. You already know what it feels like when bread comes with a price tag you can't pay. And you also know this: it ends. Not with the beast on the throne, not with the liar laughing, not with the faithful erased. It ends with the breath of Christ, with judgment that doesn't miss, with evil removed like an infection finally cut out. The night can be long, and the lamps can sputter, and the streets can stay dangerous. But the ending is not up for grabs. The boasting mouth goes quiet, the beast is thrown down, and the people who keep their grip on the real Jesus, dusty feet, wounded hands, and all, are still there when the noise finally dies away. You step out into the street and the night air hits your face like damp cloth. Not refreshing, just wet and cold and full of Rome's greatest hits. Soot, old wine, and that sour latrine smell that never fully leaves the stones. Behind you, the house goes quiet again. A few murmured goodbyes, a sandal scuff, a baby cough that someone tries to smother gently against a shoulder. And you start walking, because walking is what you do when your brain won't stop replaying beasts with crowns. The moon is thin, the alley is narrower than you remembered, and every shadow looks like it could be a soldier deciding to ruin your week. Your stomach tightens anyway, out of habit, out of practice. Fear has been doing reps. But now, as the lamps burn lower and the city settles into that uneasy half-sleep, remember this: every prophet who saw the darkness also saw what came after. Not as a rumor, not as a wish, as a solid, unmoving ending. Daniel didn't only see a horn with a loud mouth. He also saw the boasting stop. He saw a courtroom that didn't need your help, a judgment that didn't get bribed, a throne that didn't wobble because some arrogant little ruler discovered public speaking. You can still feel that shift in your chest, like you'd been clenching your jaw so long you forgot what it felt like to unclench. The beast doesn't get the last word. The saints don't get forgotten when the noise dies down. Even Antiochus, with his pig blood stunt and his smug parade through holy places, didn't get to write the last line. He did what he did. People suffered. Holy things were mocked like they were nothing. And still, morning came to Jerusalem again. Brooms swept ash off stone. Hands washed the grime away. Lamps were lit. Bread was broken. Songs returned, a little shaky at first, but real. Desecration feels permanent while you're standing in it. It never is. Paul didn't only warn you about the man of lawlessness. He also handed you a strange, quiet comfort that doesn't look like comfort until you've needed it. Evil is restrained, held back, leashed, not because people are so impressive or because the empire has a conscience, but because God does not surrender the world to a bully with a stage. And when that lawless one finally struts into full view, when he sits where he shouldn't sit and says what he shouldn't say, his end isn't a sprawling war that leaves heaven sweating. It's a breath. You know what a breath is. You've heard them all night. In crowded rooms, in sickbeds, in prayers whispered through cracked lips. One breath, and the show is over. John didn't only drag you through the wet cave and the salt air and the nightmare parade of horns and heads and propaganda. He also walked you to the far side of it. You don't stay trapped under the beast's shadow forever. You don't spend eternity standing in a market with a hungry stomach and a choice that feels impossible. The pressure breaks. The mark stops, mattering. The machine that demanded worship gets dismantled like a rotten cartwheel that finally snaps. And what's left isn't just you survived. It's not just a scorched earth and a sad little victory lap. It's a world remade. You keep walking, and your sandals slap the stones in a steady rhythm. A stray dog watches you from a doorway, ribs showing, eyes dull with the kind of exhaustion only street animals truly master. Somewhere in the distance, a drunk laughs, then coughs, then laughs again, like he's trying to convince himself he's happy. You pass a shuttered stall that still smells faintly of fish guts. The odor has seeped into the wood, into the rope, into your memory. This is the part where your mind usually spirals, where you start imagining the next crackdown, the next betrayal, the next smooth-talking liar with clean hands and a dirty agenda. But the images you've been carrying aren't only monsters, they're mourning, because the ending you were given isn't a blank wall. It's a wedding feast. Bread that doesn't taste like fear. Wine that doesn't taste watered down. A table where nobody flinches at footsteps outside. Not a starving, anxious meal eaten in a corner while you listen for boots outside. A feast. Tables. Light. A room where nobody is counting coins or rationing olives like it's a moral test. You can almost hear it. The clatter of cups, the scrape of benches, laughter that doesn't sound nervous, food that doesn't come with strings tied to it. No one checking your forehead or your hand before they let you eat. The story runs toward a city too, not Rome, with its mildew-stained tenements and its anxious crowds and its constant smell of smoke trapped between buildings. A new city, one where the gates don't slam shut in panic, one where the streets aren't slick with yesterday's mess, one where you don't have to memorize which alley is safest and which corner belongs to which gang of bored young men with sticks. A true city where the light doesn't feel like it might be snuffed out. A city where you don't keep one ear open for trouble, even while you're trying to pray. You've spent so long living with the assumption that darkness is normal, that it's the default setting, that every good thing is temporary, and every safe moment is just the calm before the next shout. But the ending you were shown flips that. Night becomes the temporary thing. Darkness becomes the visitor that doesn't get to stay. You reach the edge of a wider street, and you can see the faintest thinning of black at the horizon. Not bright yet, not the kind of dawn that makes you feel heroic. Just that first pale smear, like someone wiped a thumb of grey across the sky. And even here, in this ordinary city that chews people up and spits them out, morning still does what morning does. It arrives without asking anyone's permission. A rooster starts up somewhere, obnoxious, confident, completely uninterested in your emotional state. A latch clicks, a door opens. You hear the soft thud of a clay jar being set down. Somebody stirs coals back to life, and the air shifts as smoke rises again, thin and new. You smell it. Yesterday's ash waking into today's fire. Somewhere a baker starts early because people will need bread whether or not the empire is feeling dramatic. And that's the quiet miracle threaded through all your terrifying visions. Life keeps going. Faith keeps going. The beasts rise, yes. They make noise. They throw their weight around. They demand attention like toddlers with crowns. They fall. Not because you managed to outsmart them at the last second, or because you guessed the right name at the right time. They fall because they aren't the point. They never were. The point was always the lamb who doesn't lose, the king who doesn't need propaganda, the God who doesn't stand far off, untouched by sweat and grief and blood, but steps into it and stays faithful all the way through it. And at the very end of it all, it isn't a monster's mouth boasting into eternity. It's a hand wiping tears, not in a vague, poetic way, in a practical way, like someone turning your face gently toward the light and brushing away what's dried there, like mercy that doesn't flinch at your mess, like love that isn't impressed by your pretending. Tears wiped away, fear unhooked from your ribs, that tight, constant readiness for the next disaster finally letting go. No more night, no more need to scan shadows, no more bread with a price you can't pay. The sky grows lighter by degrees, the stones under your feet are still cold, and the city is still the city, and your life is still your life. But now, you're carrying the ending the way you carry a lantern, small, steady, stubborn. Morning always comes, not because the night was kind, because darkness has an expiration date. Long after the beasts have eaten each other and the crowns have rusted, and the loud mouths have gone, silent, the light keeps spreading, quiet and undefeated. And somewhere the feast is still set, and the city still stands, and the story keeps going on and on, brightening at the edges, like dawn taking its time, but never turning back.